It's the greatest podcast in the history of the world.
It goes high up and under the full 40. Becky's taken a ripper!
He has a bounce, he crosses 50, he pins the ears back, and he drills the goal!
All the latest news and views from around the VAFA.
Here's the big man!
The big goal!
He's done it again! This bloke extracts some of the finest!
From outside the arc. It's a long bomb from outside the arc!
This is for the love of the game.
You can tweet that and hashtag it bloody good.
Hello and welcome to For the Love of the Game. This is week 15 in review, round 13 of Premier action, round 14 of divisional action. And it did not disappoint, gentlemen. Where were you on the weekend?
Hello to you, Jace, to Brayden, to
Yes,
everybody.
I should say, where were you on the weekend? Matthew Donald. I probably should put that important piece of information. Everyone listening at home is like, where was I on the weekend? Well, I went shopping on Sunday. Matty, where were you on the weekend?
I was at Glen Huntly Park, Jace, watching a critical match between Caulfield Grammarians and University Blacks, and it was going to answer a lot of questions about what these two teams were fighting for, and we'll obviously get to the review of that match. A really impressive second half from the Blacks, though. They look to climb further away from the relegation zone, but Caulfield looks like they'll be in a bit of a dogfight at the bottom end of the ladder.
Brayden May, welcome. It was a great weekend of footy, and we've got a very mouth-watering weekend coming up as well.
Yeah, we're getting to the exciting stuff. I think we're through that lull of the middle part of the season where you just think, can we move on? Can we get to the exciting stuff? But yeah, footy is starting to take shape. We've seen some upsets on the weekend, some almost upsets that would have turned the competition on its head. Some flexing by one of the big boys in Premier in particular that we'll touch on in a minute. But yeah, it's starting to get to the real stuff, the stuff we look forward to. And unfortunately, there's going to be a couple of teams that are disappointed to miss finals, and they probably won't deserve to based on their quality.
There's going to be some very disappointed teams that get relegated too, all the way up and down through the competitions, because as we'll go through all the ladders for you shortly with all the results from all our senior men's, women's, under-19 Premier throughout the show, you'll just see that the ladders are incredibly tight, and there's some very good teams who are going to be stiff to be relegated at the end of the year. We're going to start with William Buck Premier Men's as per usual in round 13. Well, at one point it was hurtling towards 4 upsets. I'm sure you would have been checking the around the ground score saying, what is going on today? Are we in bizarro world? But a couple of the top 4 teams managed to pull out of the nosedive steady late and find a way to win. And what it has left us with the question, and we'll get to the ladder shortly, has the ladder now finally split in two? Is there a top 5 in the finals race? Is there a bottom 5 in the relegation race? Let's take a closer look. We're going to start with top versus bottom. It was at the Snake Pit. You wouldn't have known it was top versus bottom if you were watching this game. I was enjoying this one live on VAFA TV. It was such a tight contest. Old Geelong just managed to get over St Bernard's in its seat-soaring thriller. Zabs came out firing. Of course, their 9-game winning streak was snapped by the Blues last week. They dominated early. They kicked the only 4 goals of the opening term. In fact, they kicked the first 6 goals of the game, and you were thinking, okay, this is going to be a comfortable afternoon for Zabs. They're going to make a big statement win here. This might be a triple-digit kind of win. The Snow Dogs were winning their share of disputed ball, but they were really sloppy. Disposal efficiency just 51% in the first quarter, so they were just continually giving it back to Zabs, and as we know, you just can't do that. Matthew Watson finally kicked the Snow Dogs' first goal. It was 12 minutes into the second quarter, and at this stage, they're already 6 goals down. But they were starting to find their rhythm. They were starting to hit some targets. They were winning the territory battle as a result of that. And they rocketed back into the game. They kicked 5 of the last 6 goals of the first half, got back to 14 points at the major break, then kicked a couple to start the third term, and they'd kicked 7 of the last 8. So they'd gone from 36 points to 3 points 12 minutes into the third quarter. And we're thinking, well, hang on, something special might be happening here at the Snake Pit. Old Zabs, as they do, they responded. They owned the footy. They racked up disposals. They controlled it with uncontested marks from that point onwards in the third term. Had 16 inside 50s to 8 for the term. They then kicked 4 of the next 5 goals. Got out to 21 points again at the last change. You're thinking, okay, Zabs have steadied. This will be fine. It was past Players' Day, though, at St Bernard's. And if you've ever experienced past Players' Day at the Snake Pit, the Snake Pit's hostile enough at the best of times. Past Players' Day takes it to another level. The crowd got wild in the last quarter. They urged the team on, and the Snow Dogs kicked 3 goals in 6 minutes to start the final term. So you can imagine what that did to the decibel levels at the Snake Pit. It was game on again. They got back within 3 points. Matthew Watson then was taken high. He converted directly in front. And at the 16-minute mark of the last quarter, the bottom team led the top team. They've come from 36 points down to lead the game. And suddenly, Zab's grip on top spot was under threat, and the Dogs could take a huge leap forward towards escaping the drop zone until later in the game. It was the 21-minute mark of the last quarter. We're into time on. Marcus Stavru actually went up in the ruck. It was in the right forward pocket for Zabs. The throw-in was a little bit short. He got there first, palmed it down to Fisher, who actually gave Stavrou the don't argue to get out of the way, wheeled onto that great left boot we've seen so many times, kicked a wonderful goal, put them in front at the 21-minute mark of the last quarter. And in the end, they managed to hang on. There were a few behinds either way. Last 7.5 minutes was desperate. The Snow Dogs threw everything at them to try and win it. They couldn't find the winner. Zabs in the end by 4 points. A gritty, hard-fought win. So they remain level on points with Uni at the top of the ladder, Uni Blues. But again, unadulterated heartbreak for the Snow Dogs. They let a golden opportunity to make up ground on the teams above them slip through their fingers once more, Matty. It's kind of been the story of their season. They've been a lot more competitive, but just those key moments at times in games that just haven't been able to find a way over the line.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking in the last few weeks, they've obviously lost by 4 points to Old Zabs at the weekend. They lost by 4 points to Old Scotch a little while back too.
Good form, isn't it?
It is good form, and they're no easy beats, those two. They're two high-caliber sides, Old Zabs and Old Scotch. And if St Bernard's had been able to fall over the line in one of those games or even both of those games, how different the relegation battle would look. But instead, they're sitting 2 games away from safety as we approach the final 5 weeks of the season. It's going to be tough for them.
The upside, Brayden, is that they get to face all of the 3 teams immediately above them on the run home. So that gives them the opportunity to directly take points off those teams. They've got Old Haileybury, Caulfield, Uni Blues, Old Brighton, Old Trinity in the run home. So the 3 teams immediately above them on the ladder, they play them all. So in that sense, their destiny to an extent is still in their own hands. Yes, they're 2 games back, but if you're assuming that some of these teams aren't going to go winning out, there's still an opportunity for St Bernard's. If they can bring that form and hold it for the next 4 or 5 weeks, they might be in for another great escape. They're not done yet.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges is going to be the mentality of those sort of games against those sides directly above them. I think you're going to the games like they did on the weekend and no one gives them a chance, so you almost think it's a free hit. We've got nothing to lose here. We can play footy. But even when we saw them at St Kevin's at the start of the month, they threatened to be blown away and they just kept coming back. In the end, they just got overrun. But this is a side that's not going to go down without a fight. And look, don't be surprised if it gets to that one of those last 2 games, even 3 games through where they play the Blues or Brighton.
And then they've got Trinity in the final round.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that might be a win and stay up or lose and go down, potentially.
Question without notice for you both. They're on 2 at the moment. Old Haileybury, Old Trinity on 4 either side of that bottom 2. How many wins do you reckon you'll need to be safe in Premier Men's this year?
Oh, who knows?
7.
You reckon 7 will keep you safe?
I think 7's going to be the magical number.
Just to be safe?
To be safe.
Well, Trinity have won what? Trinity have won 4. So you would think that Trinity would need to win another 3 to be safe. It doesn't feel like it's that many, but maybe it is. I mean, Blacks are sitting 6th and they've already got 5 wins.
Well, Collegians went down with 6.5 last year.
Yeah. I mean, that was an anomaly. Yeah. I think we did the sums and that was the most anyone had gone down since 2010 or something. It was a huge number. But yeah, that could come down to that last game. So let's talk a little about the mentality of St Bernard's, Matty, and their coach, Steve Alessio, who has to keep them up all the time. They're playing good footy. They're not getting the results. What did he have to say post-game?
Well, he was thrilled with the effort. He said it was fantastic once again. Couldn't be prouder of the resilience that the players had shown. As we mentioned, they conceded the first 6 goals of the game and against the best team in the competition managed to find their way in front halfway during the final term. He thought they allowed too many uncontested possessions in that early phase of the game, which isn't the way to play Old Zabs. Their ball use just cut them apart time and again. He praised in particular the leaders in the second half, especially those in the engine room and the midfield, got to work, got them back in the game, winning their fair share of contested ball, getting those forward, particularly Matty Watson, enough looks at it. They were able to work their way back into the game, got ahead in the last quarter, but weren't able to make the most of the opportunities that they had to really consolidate that lead. He's been really encouraged with the effort over the last month, and they've got to bring it home for the final 5 weeks.
Dan Donati, from a Zabs perspective, what did he take from it?
He paid a lot of credit to St Bernard's actually in his comments here in your great review of the game, Jay. So said they were super competitive and he just knew that despite momentum shifting, you know you're going to get that when you head along to the Snake Pit. But he said the pressure that they brought was fantastic and he was just pleased with his side's ball use, which I think leans into the point in the uncontested mark. And he was just very pleased that the boys were able to settle when the game was on the line late. And we touched on the names, Stavrou, Fisher. And I think what I loved about watching that goal unfold was just for any young footballers watching, the movement of Sam Fisher through stoppage, it's what the best midfielders do on the move. It makes you harder to tackle. And he got onto that left footers. They make it look easy, which is almost unfair sometimes. But it was just a little thing that you taught from a young age that he did the basics in a key game situation.
Yep, worked the fundamentals beautifully. Well, Teams that were in deep trouble, speaking of them, Old Brighton was on the weekend. They were in trouble early in the second half before they managed to also dig deep and find a way to grind out the last 6 goals of the game to pip Old Trinity at Daily Oval. So another relegation team seemed to be on their way to a crucial win, only to have it snatched away late in the game. The Tunners looked to control the ball via uncontested marks early, but Trinity's intercept game gave them 3 goals to 1 in the back half of that term. They led by 13 points at the first break, did the Tees. The Tunners then kicked 2 of the first 3 goals in the second quarter, but the general flow of the game sort of continued on as the first term. The Tees were on top in contested footy. They controlled the tempo. They used the footy to greater advantage. They kicked 3 goals to 1 with a couple of time-on goals, and it was the Tees by 21 points at the major break. And when Trinity surged the ball forward, Charlie Comer snapped a goal 3 minutes into the third term. It was out to 27 points, and the Tunners needed a response. They did respond. Their ball use improved. They strung together some passages of play. They began to get some territorial dominance. They had 15 inside 50s to 9 for the quarter. Charlie Richardson bobbed up, kicked a couple. They kicked the next 4 goals of the game, got back to within 4 points at 3-quarter time, then struck first in the last term as well to hit the front. They'd kicked 5 in a row, and they led for the first time since 12 minutes into the game. Couple of behinds put the Tees back in front. Goals completely dried up. Both teams locked down and fought desperately for the win. Old Brighton then actually kicked the next 5 behinds of the game to get out to a 4-point lead from 1 point down to 4 points up. The match winner eventually came 25 minutes in the last term. The Tunners, great forward pressure. They forced the Tees defence into retreating and ever-decreasing circles with their handballs. A smothered handball ended up with Michael Carianis. He gave it off to Tom Bennell. He slotted the goal from 20 out, made it a 10-point game, and then they managed to grind out the last 8 minutes. Old Trinity just couldn't find the winner, and in the end it was Brighton by 11 points that just keeps the chasing pack at bay. They remain 2 games clear, plus 25%, so effectively 3 games clear in 4th spot, while Trinity's frustrating season, just like Old St Bernard's, continues. Another missed opportunity, their 8th consecutive loss, and they remain inside the relegation zone on percentage behind Old Haileybury.
Yeah, no, a terrific win for Old Brighton, really, who were really challenging. We've already touched on a couple of teams using their get-out-of-jail-free card this weekend, but no, that was an important win for Old Brighton. Didn't realise that they managed to kick the last 6 goals of the game, sort of just following that one from afar. And Hugo Higginbotham, who was with me on Saturday, he'll be very frustrated with that goal kicking in the final term from both teams. Is that 2 goals 11 combined?
Yeah, it was that sort of game. It was so desperate. It was just the defences just locked down. No one could find a goal. And yeah, Brighton ended up edging to the front on behinds. And it was a really important 4 points for Brighton, Brayden, given they've got the top 2 teams in the next fortnight. So to bank those 4 and again, just have that breathing space over Scotch, who are surging in 5th. Old Trinity's season, though, still well and truly alive. They're still in their own hands. They play Caulfield and the Blacks in the run home. So again, as we spoke about with St Bernard's, it's going to give them the opportunity to climb over them and out of the drop zone. And then, of course, St Bernard's in that final round. But what a game this week. An enormous clash against the Fields coming up. That's going to be huge.
Yeah, and it's one they simply must win. It's one of those ones where, for both sides, you look at Old Brighton and think, they lose this, we're talking almost panic stations heading into the next couple of games with the quality of players that are missing the long list.
They will get them back in the next couple of weeks, which is important.
Which is handy. But then Old Trinity, if they win this, it's almost a bonus 4 points in a way. The game you're not expected to win, but they must just go in with a lot of confidence, despite the fact that they kick 7-14 as well. So 21 scoring shots against Old Brighton under man is a great result.
Well,
but
what did Donald McDonald say after the game?
He had a lot to say, and it was some positives, some negatives, and some outright weird, to be honest. He said that losing sucks and that they've lost 8 in a row, but he gave a lot of credit for the club as a whole. So like many VAFA teams, they don't want to forfeit. The 19s played with 16 players. Players then doubled up to play in the reserves, which just showed the spirit and character. And I think that goes a long way in terms of they've lost 8 in a row in the top grade. The grade
blokes aren't dropping off, though. They're still committed.
But now he's also wishing luck to George Belcher and his mate who are representing Australia in a reality dating show being filmed in Portugal.
Yep.
That is not a sentence I thought I'd read on this podcast.
That's one of the more unusual cases of the Tullamarine flu, that one, with a Portuguese twist.
Very strange variant indeed.
Well, I hope Century's right across that one. He talks about Caulfield, said they're having a great season, says it's going to be another challenging game, but at the moment, every game's a challenge for his side is the best way he summed it up.
What did Marcel Bruin make of their get-out-of-jail performance out of Daily Oval?
Yeah, well, he acknowledged that it was a really tough game. So first and foremost, just happy to get out of there with 4 points. Certainly the first half didn't pan out the way that they had planned. Trinity were dominant through the midfield and had stoppages around the ground. But they still had their opportunities, the Tunners. They just weren't able to make the most of them, and Trinity deservedly led it at half-time. They made some adjustments at the main break, the Tunners, and they were able to get some positive results out of that. The decision-making improved. They were playing with a bit more freedom as a consequence. Proper arm wrestle in that last term, which you already alluded to, Jason, and praise the defenders as well, who were able to stand up when required. The pressure lifted in the forward half. The goal kicking wasn't exactly where he wanted it to be, but it was just good enough rather to get the Tunners over the line. A big 4 points for them.
Huge, given that they play Zabs and Blues in the next 2 weeks. Well, Old Scotch continued their impressive mid-season revival. They had a sparkling 27-point win over the third place, but undermanned St Kevin's at Camberwell. It keeps the Cardinals' September hopes alive. Both teams were pretty cautious early on. They moved the ball around via uncontested marking. They weren't risking turnovers and kicking to contest. It was like two boxers just eyeing each other off in the first term. No one was throwing any punches. It took 13 minutes for the opening goal to be kicked. The hosts led by one straight kick at the first break after they had a couple of goals later on. The game remained predominantly between the arcs in the second term, but it was Scobb's remarkable efficiency going forward that really gave them the initiative in that second quarter. They only went inside 50 10 times for the term, but they managed to kick 5 goals from those 10 forays forward, and they kicked away to a 25-point lead, and things were looking great for St Kevin's. But importantly for the Cardinals, Ollie Barter, who's an excellent player, he bobbed up late in that second term, kicked a couple of goals and got it back to 13 points at halftime, far more manageable. Then the game changed significantly in the third term. Scotch got on top around the contest. Hugh Burne-Jones had 10 touches for the term, just kept driving it forward. The Cardinals clicked into gear. They began converting their stoppage wins into just quick, direct ball movement. Will Clark was inside 50. They took 5 marks inside 50 for the term, did the Cardinals, and they kicked 5 goals from them. So it was quick delivery inside 50. Mark, go back, kick the goal. Will Clark was suddenly everywhere. He was on the end of everything. He kicked 4 goals for the quarter, did the big pig, just 6 disposals and 5 marks, kicked 4 for the term. Old Scotch rocketed away, and in a 20-minute burst that really cracked the game wide open, they kicked 6 unanswered goals in that 20 minutes and went from 13 points down to 4 goals up at three-quarter time, and then kept rolling. They kicked 2 goals in the opening 3 minutes of the last term to effectively put the game to bed. It was 10 minutes into the final term before St Kevin's kicked a goal in the second half. It was Matt Canning who bobbed up and kicked a couple in a row, actually. But in the end, Will Clark sealed it with his 6th goal to keep Old Scotch's September dream alive for at least another week. A well-earned 27-point win. Clark, well, we know how damaging he can be as a ruck, but particularly as a key forward. He kicked 6 goals in the second half to lead his team to victory. 21 disposals, 14 marks, 6 goals and a match-winning performance. And Matty, we mentioned Will Verge as a second ruck option, the youngster who's come through from the 19s and the 3rds. Well, having him has now allowed Mark Nat at times to just go, you know what, we're going okay, we're winning the stoppage battle, or at least we're breaking even. We can take Will Clark out of the ruck. We'll put him forward to try and win us the game. Will Verge just needs to compete so we can break even. And that's what they did. They ended up breaking even in clearance. But you throw a guy like Will Clark forward, he kicks 6 in the second half and wins you the match.
Yeah, and that's where he's more likely to win your game deep in the goal square rather than in the ruck. And he's a very good ruck. We know that, one of the best in the competition. But when you're afforded the luxury of putting your match winners really close to goal, causes all sorts of headaches for the opposition's defence.
And they used to have Sam Grant who could play that role and go into the middle and allow Will to go forward. Earlier in the year, Will was spending a bit more time in the ruck, but as you say, wow, if you can pull that trigger.
Will was probably having to do both. We would see him sort of start in the centre and then have to push forward and be the main guy and had to sort of cover 2 positions at once. But he doesn't have to do that anymore now that Verge is in the ruck. He can just play as a permanent forward, pinch it at times in the ruck. Obviously, Verge is going to need a chop out from time to time. But the more time you can spend Will Clark up forward, the better that's going to be for Old Scotch. And well, that's going to increase their chances of getting victory, and we saw it again on Saturday.
Well, they've won 5 of their last 6 now, Brayden. They're threatening to replicate last season's incredible late charge into September. They're still 2 games behind Brighton plus percentage, so they're going to have to keep on winning and then hope that the Tunners do stumble over the next couple of weeks against those top 2 teams, which is entirely possible. And if so, we could be in for another thrilling final couple of rounds in the race for 4th spot, because you can't write the Cardinals off in the form they're in right now.
No, definitely not. Even when they go to Uni Oval to take on Blues at the moment, who are red hot.
What a game this week.
It shapes as an absolute beauty, and we'll find out just how good Scotch are and if we can take them seriously. Because if they go in there and steal the 4 points, I think we'll be sitting here next week thinking, who's falling out and whose spot are they taking? Because in this sort of form, they're not anyone you want to go near.
It's a massive 4 points because then they've got Trinity, Caulfield, Blacks the 3 weeks after that. So if they maintain this form, you think they're all winnable games, and it all leads to Zabs in the final round.
I think Brayden May makes a fair point, because if there's one part you might want to point out of Scotch's last fortnight, Old Brighton and St Kevin's, as good as they are, they have been undermanned.
Yep.
Those two. But if they can go and knock over University Blues,
when they're white hot,
if they can go there and win that game, then we all sit up and take a lot more notice about Old Scotch, and they could potentially be sitting one game outside the 4 with the month to go in the season.
There's no doubt that the 2026 version of the Tullamarine flu is ravaging clubs more than usual. St Kevin's no exception. They're missing more than half their starting lineup through injury and vacation. They should welcome a healthy cohort back, though, over the next 2 to 3 weeks. They're 2 games behind the top 2. They're a game clear of Brighton, so they're 3 games plus percentage ahead of the Cardinals in 5th. So for now, really, Brayden, it's about stabilisation for Scob, getting those players back over the next few weeks and getting themselves peaking at the right time for September, because last year they didn't.
Exactly right, and I imagine they walk away with those lessons, ready to flip those around. And like the next 2 games against Blacks and Hailbury, they'll go in as strong favourites. Then it's Zavs, then it's Trinity away, and then it's Uni Blues to finish. So those 2 Zavs and Blues games, they're what the coaches want at this time of year. That's no disrespect to the other teams, but there's no better tune-up than knowing where you measure up against the top quality sides. And look, I think Anthony Lynch put it perfectly in his summary of the game. He said Scotch have got their mojo back and with a better team on the day. His boys were very good in the second half, but just let themselves down with the fundamentals after half time. Said it was disappointing to go away from those things, but he said Scotch were very good and just punished us.
From Mark Nat's perspective in the Scotch camp?
Yeah, he said it was a pretty even first term, which we sort of touched on. It was a bit of cat and mouse in that opening quarter. St Kevin's too good in the second term, but the 2 late goals from Ollie Barter gave them some momentum going into half-time. They were disappointed with a few aspects of their game, particularly in that first half, but he praised the maturity of the group to respond after half-time. 6-0 third term. It was a dominant premiership quarter from the Cardinals. Finished the game strongly. He's been really thrilled with the fact that in consecutive weeks they've knocked over contenders. Obviously at Old Brighton a couple of weeks ago, and now St Kevin's at the weekend. Will Clark was terrific, of course, and loved Simmons and Barter too. Uni Blues on Sunday. That's the point that he made right at the end of his comment. That is going to be on for young and old. What a game it promises to be.
What a game this weekend. Saturday you'll see it on VAFA Media coming up this weekend. Uni Blues taking on Old Scotch on KTV Community TV and VAFA TV live and free on the website. While you were at Glen Huntly Park, as you mentioned earlier on in the show, Uni Blacks posting a critical win. It was a mid-table clash between Caulfield, Grammarians and Uni Blacks, and we were sort of thinking the winner might be looking upwards, the loser might be looking downwards. This game opened at breakneck speed, and I know I heard you and Hugo talking later saying it was one of the fastest VAFA games you've probably ever seen. You couldn't look away for a moment. There were 6 goals, 3 apiece, in the first 9 minutes of the game. Both the defences just spent their whole time looking over their head.
Yeah, no, they didn't waste any time getting the scoreboard ticking over these 2
6 goals in the first 9 minutes.
Yeah. Another remarkable stat was there was a goal kick in the opening minute of each of the 4 quarters. So every quarter got off to a real hot start. No, this was an unbelievable game of football to watch, in truth. A very even first half, just the 9 points separating the 2 teams at the main break. Uni Blacks in third term, and I know you'll get it to in your match report, Jace, but they were absolutely outstanding in that third term. They overwhelmed the fields with
It was from the
territory.
inside, wasn't it? They muscled up. They dominated clearances 15-5, then took territory off the back of it and just forced Caulfield onto the back foot.
Yeah, no, it was a terrific quarter from the Blacks, and we know they're capable of this sort of football. We've seen it from them at times this year, but my goodness, the way both teams moved the football, you'd see 5 hand passes ping around in the space of a second. If a point was being kicked, they'd waste no time looking to bring the ball back into play. These 2 teams went all out attack, gung-ho football. If that's a taste of what's to come in the run home, it's going to make for some really exciting football. This was a terrific game of football to watch.
6 goals to 2 in the third term from the Blacks. That got them out to 34 points up at the last change. Matt Grocott kicked 3 goals in that third quarter, and Tommy Sinclair kicked a couple. In the end, a critical 44-point win for Uni Blacks. Kicks them a game plus 17% clear of the drop zone, so almost 2 games. And their final score of 18-17-125, their largest since they kicked 19-16-130 against Old Carey in round 8 of 2022. They were in B grade at that time, made the grand final that season. So this is their largest score at senior level for almost 4 years, back when they were in B grade. And it was their largest score in Premier Men's since 2017, when they kicked 139 to defeat Old Zabs by 71 points. So we haven't associated Uni Blacks with scoring power in recent years. It's been their main problem at times. They've been very inconsistent, Brayden. They haven't been able to put big scores on the board, but Matty Grocott, he kicked 34 goals last year, only had 7 in 8 games coming in this year, but he kicked 6, was his biggest haul in recent years. If he can maintain that level of influence on the run home, the Blacks become extremely difficult to play against.
Exactly right, and they're one of those sides that the top 5 sides don't want to be facing off against. When you've got that brand of footy might have caught a few by surprise as well. Like you touched on the scoring droughts they've sort of ended there. Like you usually think of Blacks as defensive, really hard at the contest, make your life tough.
Yep. We'll kick 10 and hold them to 8.
The Sydney of old almost, if you want to make an AFL comparison. So, again, maybe some slight tweaks from Dale Bauer in recent weeks. He might have just unveiled a few tricks. Kane Loftus having him available, obviously a big inclusion with 34 disposals and
34, 14 contested, 5 tackles, 13 clearances, 9 inside 50s and 2 goals. Is that one of the best performances individually you've seen this year?
Oh, he was outstanding. But to be fair, that entire engine room for the Blacks, Loftus, Broderick, Cassidy, and then when you've got Conway palming the ball down to them in the ruck, that was just it was a phenomenal performance by all. And
they're doing it without Cordy. They're doing it without James Clark. Hugh Curnow now they've lost for the rest of the season. He's gone to Darwin for work. So they are, like other clubs, they are short of some numbers, some key A-grade talent. And yet they're still finding ways. Yeah, no, that midfield performance was excellent, and Campbell Moorfield as well. It was a pretty interesting battle between he and Julian DeBoz down or in the field's forward line. DeBoz kicked 5, so it was a good battle, that one. But no, they've still got some quality, even though they've got some absentees, like a lot of teams. They've still got that's a very good midfield quartet that they've got at their disposal. So first things first for both these teams, really, that means just wins, putting some distance between themselves and the drop zone. It won't be easy for Blacks, of course. They've got St Kevin's and Old Zabs in the next fortnight, so a couple of contenders there. Then Old Scotch in the penultimate round with Trinity and Haileybury scattered in there in their run home. For Caulfield, very disappointing for them. Not only dashed their finals hopes, but it really has dragged them back into the relegation race as well. They're now behind Blacks on percentage. They're only 1 game clear of Old Trinity, which makes this week's clash with the Tees even more crucial. Win that, they go 2 games clear of the Tees and give themselves some breathing room. But if they lose, Trinity joins them on 5 wins. And so for Caulfield, it's Trinity, St Bernard's. Get through, though. They've got to bank those 4 points in those 2 games, because then they've got Old Scotch, Uni Blues, Old Brighton to finish. Yeah, this weekend or the weekend just gone was going to determine whether they'd spend the rest of the season looking up into the top 4 or looking down into the bottom 2. We now know that they're going to be taken into a relegation fight, but their destiny is still in their own hands. That next fortnight's very winnable against the Tees and St Bernard's, and if they can pick up 2 wins from there, then suddenly they can breathe a little bit easier. So it's all for them to be able to do it now. What did Paul Sadley have to say after this one? So he said it was a game where the opposition were just better overall in every aspect, from clearances to pressure. They were just too good. He thought they were under par throughout the course of the day. Could only really consider the tackling as an area where you give them a bit of a tick where it was at the level required. Said Julian DeBoss was excellent with 5 goals from reasonably limited opportunities as well. It's fair to say. Archie Lofton had his moments alongside him in the forward line, and Hugh McKenzie, it was good to have him back in the side too, but just not enough winners on the day, and they've got some execution that they need to work on, need to improve on the efficiency as well. Dale Bauer might be the most understated coach in the competition. Was he glowing in his praise, Brayden?
No, he just said, as we touched on the speed, neither team could really control the ball. He said, I think it was highlighted by the fact there was 6 goals in the opening minutes. He said they were able to find another level in the third quarter, and he executed better on offense, which is something we just touched on. Just really pleased with for the players, the coaches, because they've worked hard to improve in recent weeks, and he's declared we're not done yet, and we're determined to get better. Yeah, that's the constant theme from Dale every week. That sounds like Dale Bauer. That's him. The final game of the round, Uni Blues sees top spot in the William Buck Premier Men's table for the first time since round 18 of 2019. Uni Blues sit on top for the first time in almost 7 years, and it was courtesy of a 97-point win over an undermanned and outgunned Old Haileybury at Melbourne University. The Blues owned the footy from the outset. Early inaccuracy actually prevented them from taking immediate control on the scoreboard. The game almost literally played at one end. 24 inside 50s to 1 in the first quarter. It lived at the Blues' end of the ground. However, credit to the Bloods' defence. They managed to continually turn back the tide. James Stewart would kick the only goal of the quarter 9 minutes in. So they had 24 inside 50s and only kicked 1 goal. It went to Stewart 9 minutes in. After which time the Blues kicked 5 behinds in a row, held the Blues scoreless for the term and led by 11 points at the first break.
The Blues continued to dominate in the second term, but once again, didn't really take full toll on the scoreboard. They kicked 3-4 to no score, yet they still headed to the major break with a 33-point lead. Old Haileybury held scoreless to half-time. It was 4-9 to 0-0. Old Haileybury's first goalless half since round 18 of last year, when they kicked 9 behinds against Old Scotch, but they were scoreless in this one, and it's the first scoreless opening half they've had in the modern era, Old Haileybury, certainly since 2011 onwards. Their first goal finally came 4 minutes into the third term. They actually started to even up the inside battle a little bit, although the Blues remained in control of the outside game. Their intercept marking was excellent. They spread it around with uncontested possession chains, and there was this sense that should the Blues find their range around goal, the dam wall would eventually break, and it was James Stewart who brought the sledgehammer. He kicked 5 goals in the third quarter. The Blues began to put the Bloods to the sword. By three-quarter time, that margin had rocketed out to 66 points, and Stewart, to three-quarter time, had kicked 8 goals 4 of their 10 goals 14. So it was just get it to James and get out of the way. The old Tommy Hafey, Royce Hart sort of strategy. So 10 watch was suddenly on at Melbourne Uni, and they didn't have long to wait, the Blues fans. Stewart kicked goals at the 4 and the 7 minute mark of the last term to make double figures. Then kicked his 11th, 26 minutes in. The Blues kicking another 7 goals to 2 in the final term. A 97-point win, which actually lifts them above Old Zabs on percentage. And as I say, they are on top of the ladder for the first time in a long time. James Stewart, 23 disposals, 13 marks, 11 goals, 6. So that extends his lead at the top of the goal-kicking leaderboard to 12 over Charlie McIsaac, 57 to 45. And Jack Hayter, who was last week's Rising Star nominee, he continued his fantastic form, 35 touches, 12 tackles, 5 clearances. So it was a double whammy, really, for the Bloods, this loss. Not only did they miss out on the 4 points, but they copped a 6% hit to their percentage, which slides them down closer to Old Trinity in the race to avoid relegation. So there's actually now just less than 2% separating those two teams.
Yeah, no, that could prove very costly come the end of the season. And margins, in addition to wins, are going to be really important, regardless of where you are. If you're one of the top sides, when you win, you've got to cash in and try and win big. And if you're down the bottom end and you are going to lose, you've got to make sure that you don't suffer a really heavy defeat like what Old Haileybury did at the weekend, because it could prove the difference between staying up or going down.
And we know they've got a heap of outs at the moment. They can pretty much put a team together of players who aren't available and in the side at the moment. What did Guy Martin have to say after this one? Obviously a very disappointing afternoon for them at the Uni.
Yeah, so he gave credit to the boys for battling hard, but they just weren't good enough. The Uni Blues are in red-hot form at the moment, playing some outstanding football, plenty of experience, a healthy list, and when you got those two things together, generally you're going to be a pretty reasonable side. They just dominated the Bloods all over the ground, in the air, when the ball hit the deck, and their ability to be able to use the space at University Oval made a big difference as well. He thought James Stewart was absolutely outstanding, though. Reserve praise for him. It's not the first time he's seen James Stewart.
Used to coach him, of course, when he was the coach of Uni Blues a couple of years ago, Guy Martin.
Yeah, so he's used to seeing James Stewart kick bags of goals, but this time he was on the other side of the glass.
Yeah, not as fun from the other side of the...
No, probably not as enjoyable this time around for him.
So for the Bloods, they've got to regroup. They've got to find a way to get over the Snow Dogs at Princes Park. What a huge game that is. If they can do that, they'll go 3 games clear of the Dogs with 4 to play. So you think that almost takes the Dogs out of the equation for Old Haileybury. So then it's just 9th spot they've got to worry about. But if they can't, only 1 game will separate the Bloods and the Dogs in the run home. And if Trinity, in fact, defeat Caulfield, Old Haileybury will slide back into the drop zone this weekend. So one of the most critical weekends of the entire season awaits Old Haileybury, St Bernard, St Kevin's, Old Brighton, and then they've got Zabs and Blacks to finish. So they've got to make their move in the next couple of weeks and try to find at least 1 win, maybe 2, and then hope that other results go their way. Who knows? Maybe they can pinch a big one towards the end. It might come down to that last round, Blacks versus the Bloods. From a Blues perspective, they've got Scotch, Brighton, Bernards, Caulfield and St Kevin's. So a couple of massive games coming up, Scotch and Brighton in the next 2 weeks, and then St Kevin's to finish. Matty Smith, the Blues coach, he must have been thrilled.
Yeah, happy they got the game on their terms early, got the ball on the outside that you touched on, transitioned forward. What I love about this, he mentions James Stewart, said he's great with the 11 goals, but a lot of it goes down to the back six performing so well at the
Well
moment.
said, Coach.
That's fantastic. He said they adapted with Haileybury throwing numbers behind the footy as well. Just quickly on Haileybury, the defensive group may have just saved them in the long run. We touched on that first quarter with 33-point lead.
Mate, this could have been a 25-goal loss.
This could have been disaster. That 6% could have become 10, 12, and then that's a long way to come.
When you
come
concede
back.
24 inside 50s in a quarter to the Blues.
And only give up one goal.
Yeah, you'd expect to be conceding more than one goal.
That's right. Look, you'd think the way they play, I mean, certainly we saw it later in the game, you give up 24 inside 50s to them, that's easily a 10-goal quarter from the Blues. So that's a great performance from the Bloods. And you're right, come the end of the season, they might be buying a round of drinks for their defenders because it might have been that performance on the weekend. Despite losing by 97, which is terrible, it's a lot better than losing by 130 or 150. So that is it for Premier Men's. Let's go through the ladder after 13 rounds. And the Blues, as we mentioned, have jumped ahead of Zabs at the top of the table. They're both on 11 wins. They're both 11-2. Blues 148.1, Zabs 142.2. So almost 6% clear now of Zabs are Blues in top spot. Then it's a 2-game gap back to St Kevin's. They're on 36. 1 game back to Brighton on 32. A 2-game back then to Scotch on 24. They sit in 5th spot. So they're 2 games plus 26%, 25, 26% outside. So almost 3 games, which is why these next 2 weeks are just so important. Scotch can find ways to keep winning, and Brighton do have a stumble against the top 2 teams, and there'd be no shame in that. Suddenly, they could find themselves right there with a few weeks to play and level on points, and then it really is game on. Blacks and Caulfield sit on 20 points. They're a game clear of Haileybury and Trinity on 16 points. So Blacks still very much, while they're looking up, they're still very much in the relegation race, and then St Bernard's 2 games behind the field on 8 points. So right now, Matty, have we got a top 5 and a bottom 5? Do we think we've got a top 5 fighting for finals down to Scotch, and then a bottom 5 from Blacks down looking to avoid relegation?
Feels that way. I can't see the Blacks or the Fields winning 3 games more than Old Brighton in the run home to leapfrog them to a spot in the finals. So I think while the Blacks are looking up in terms of trying to progress and improve, I think really their battle lies in the teams fighting in that trying to climb out of that bottom 2. And yeah, I think the race is now down to 5, and I think this weekend's results have confirmed that.
Well, that's the thing. Even if Brighton lose to Zabs and Blues, they've got Haileybury, Bernards and Caulfield the last 3 weeks. So if they win even 2 of those, they'd need to win, at least 2. If they win all 3 of those games, then they can't be touched by Blacks. They're too far ahead, and it's only Scotch that could potentially knock them off. So that's why we're sort of thinking it's top 5 and bottom 5.
Yeah, I think so at this stage. And even if they drop, if they only win 2 of their games, it requires the Blacks or the Fields to run the table, which you'd think, given that they've only won 5 games for the season, to go and win 5 in a row to finish the season would be unlikely. So yeah, I think we've got a clearly defined top 5 and bottom 5 now.
And a quick look at the goal kicking with 5 rounds still to play. James Stewart now has kicked 12 goals clear. He's on 57 goals. Charlie McIsaac from Zabs on 45. Matthew Watson from St Bernard sits on 31, ahead of Sam Grimley from the Blues on 30. Jacob Kazitsky and Sam Tucker, both from St Kevin's, on 28. Both of those out of the team at the moment. St Kevin's have got a bunch. They've got probably 13, 14, 15 blokes out of their best lineup, but they are going to be getting half a dozen back each week over the next few weeks as they look to consolidate for September. Will Clark now on 27. Ben Townsend, Jack Bank and Wade Brosnahan round out the top 10 in the goal kicking in William Buck Premier Men's. That's the top flight done. After the break, well, he's back, baby. Matty Donald's back. He's now officially our expert again in Premier B. We'll pick his brain next on For the Love of the Game.
Footy finals are almost here, and there's no better way to kick them off than at the 2026 William Buck VAFA Finals Luncheon. Join MC Nat Edwards, AFL legends and Brownlow medalists James Hearn and Jimmy Bartel, plus Jason Bennett and the VAFA Media team for a live For the Love of the Game finals preview. Friday, September 4th at the RACV City Club. Enjoy a premium 2-course lunch, beverage package and an unforgettable afternoon of football stories and finals insights. Book your tickets now at vafa.com.au. Don't miss out on one of the biggest events on the VAFA calendar.
This is For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk Premier B, and I think our expert reporter, who might be up and about today, he's had a pretty good weekend on the tip.
Yes, indeed, I have, Jace. You're only as good as your most recent weekend.
Oh, is that
tips,
right?
I think it is fair to say.
Is that right? I'm pretty sure that's not what we heard in recent weeks. But anyway, you're slowly edging back towards Brayden May, and the two of you are coming together a little bit closer. Speaking of close, where should we start? Let's start at Como Park.
I think that's the place to start. Just when you think you've seen everything in Prem B, this year. You get a fixture like we had at the weekend, Old Melburnians and Old Geelong, one of the comebacks of the season, the best comeback in Premier B men so far. Old Melburnians coming down from 39 points. They were trailing at 1 point early in the last term. They stormed home to win by 3 points at the end. They kicked 8 of the last 9 goals, 14-7, 91 to 13-10, 88. Thrilling win for James Byrne and his men, and it means that they maintain touch with the top 4.
Speaking of goals, the man who swung forward late in the game, Ned Nichols, kicked 3 in the last quarter and helped his side get over the line for a thrilling victory. He joins us on the line. Ned, thanks for your time.
No worries. How are you all going?
Oh, mate, we're great. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Hey, talk us through the first few quarters. How did you guys get 39 points down in the first place? What was going through the minds of the group?
Well, we started off well. We were smashing them in the first quarter, and then they just started running over us in that second and third. And then we go into the third quarter time thinking, oh, this is going to be tough. But we thought, we're just going to go 1 goal at a time. And then that flow state happened with everyone. And, yeah, we just started kicking away.
At what point of the game did you swing forward? Because you were playing on ball, weren't you, for most of the afternoon?
I started back.
Back. You were everywhere.
Yeah, so I've been playing backline this year.
Yep.
And then I wasn't getting much of it, so I went midfield. And then, yeah, third quarter time, they put me on the board at full forward. And then, yeah, just started getting that flow state.
And everything just started to happen from there. Hey, Matty, we've been saying all year, Old Melburnians, probably in a very, very difficult competition, probably the hardest team to get a handle on where they're at. They went loss, win, loss, 3 wins in a row, loss, win, 4 losses in a row, and now a win again. It's been all over the place.
Yeah, they've been a tough team to get a read on. Not unique in that respect. There've been a lot of teams that we've been struggling to get a bit of a read on. But Ned, I want to ask about James Byrne, because his message throughout the course of the year has been about systems and trying to implement a system that's going to be sustainable, so that no matter who's in the team, that you'll have something that you can execute week in, week out. Just curious from your perspective, the impact that he's had on the group.
Well, he is the best coach I've ever had. Just the way he works with structures. I think we've been lacking that in the last 3 years, where we've just been playing man on man, and he came in and put in his own structure defensively. And we've just been implementing that each week, getting better at it each week, and that's how we win these close games. The zone comes through and we start just kicking away from causing turnovers, and he's the one. And, yeah, we just follow him.
Well, Ned, they kicked the first goal at the last, and then they kicked another halfway through the quarter. What was it? Were there certain acts or anything that really kept the energy going, or is it just that mentality of we've just got nothing to lose? You'd rather lose by 10 goals instead of go down like you did?
Well, I think it's just once you see a couple players believing, it is contagious. So you can see after each goal, another player starts believing, and then by the end of it, you've got the whole team with momentum, and then you just can't stop momentum sometimes, and it was on our side, so it was great to be a part of.
You sit 5th at the moment on the outside looking in, but only just in such a tight competition. You're a game behind Old Camberwell, but you've got superior percentage. No easy games in Premier B. What have you made of the competition this year? Because all the indicators, suggest that it's probably the tightest suburban competition in all of Victoria. It's incredibly tight. How are you enjoying that challenge of every week? And you look ahead, you've got D-Lar, Old Carey, Old Ivanhoe, Collegians and Willie to finish. And a couple of those teams you sort of look at and go, well, on the ladder, theoretically that should be an easy game. But you look on the weekend and Willie, who were the bottom team, just knocked off Ajax, who were second.
Yeah, it is annoying and still get relegated at this point. But now we've got a good point right now, being 5th. But we love the challenge. So every week we go in and think every team has a chance. We also think we're better than every team. And I think that's the way you approach the game.
Why, Ned? Where are you better than other teams? What is your competitive advantage? If you get the game on your terms, what does it look like?
Well, around the whole ground, our backline, midfield and forward, we all have stars in it. So no matter where we are on the ground, we've got players who can really change the game. And I've noticed some teams are very good in the midfield. I think we are around the ground. We've just got these stars that can change the momentum in the game, and that really helps you, I think, in these close games because every game's close.
Ned, I spoke with James after the match. He said it's one of the best wins he's been involved of as a coach. Where does it sit with you?
Yeah, it's my best win, I think. It was, being a part of it, it was unbelievable. Just to see a reaction. I looked on the replay of when the siren went. You can just see the crowd as well erupting. It's such a good feeling for the club because we have so many supporters coming out. And when you get a win like that, it lifts so much motivation with everyone. So it definitely is my number one.
That's great. Who would be in your top 3 to 5 in your best and fairest this year? We talk about stars around the ground. Obviously, you've got a really even team with talent and experience on every line. Who's really stood out for you this year?
Definitely Lachie Templeton in our midfield. He's the general in there. He's set the standard. Tommy Spargo, our captain, has been unbelievable. And Hugo Hines on our wing has been unbelievable as well. So those 3 are my pick.
Mate, looking ahead, De La Salle this weekend, what do you know about them? Obviously, they beat you by 9 points earlier in the year. What are some of the challenges they present for you and your teammates?
I think what I said, De La, is they're very good at outnumbering. So that's a work rate thing that I think we are going to have to lift. We didn't have that in our first game against them. So the way they play is just outnumber. So we've just got to really work hard and help our boys out and keep outnumbering.
Ned, thanks for your time so much. Best of luck for this weekend and the road ahead. We appreciate chatting to you on For the Love of the Game, and congratulations on the best win of your career.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
So let's go around the grounds and check out the rest of the results from Premier B Men's across the weekend. Where would you like to start? Will we start with one of the biggest upsets of the season?
I think so. We'll go from one of the great comebacks to one of the big upsets of the season. It was a weekend of bigs in Premier B, and Williamstown CYMS snapped an 8-game losing streak to defeat second-place Ajax by 33 points at Fear on Reserve. This was a phenomenal performance from the CYs. 10 struggle all afternoon. They led by just 8 points at the three-quarter time. The margin never really got to any significant difference, but they finally kicked clear in the final term. They kicked the opening 2 goals of the quarter, and it was enough to keep the Jackers at bay. 14-15, 99 to 11-10, 76, the final score. Mahi Patel, we've got to talk about him, though. What a remarkable rise it's been for him in 2026. He kicked a game-high 5 goals for the CYs. A critical performance from him and for the team.
Gee, the race for the rising star is really starting to heat up. We spoke about Jack Hayter in the first segment over at Uni Blues, who's just doing amazing things week after week. Mahi Patel keeps putting himself in the frame week after week as well. He's 17 years old, let's not forget.
And now he's doing it in senior footy.
Yeah.
He obviously caught our eye in the under-19s, but now he's just absolutely flying. And he's one of my favourite interviews this year as well, from when we did have him on the podcast. He was fantastic. But
he would have to be on AFL recruiting radars now with what he's doing. Just you look at his trajectory, which is what you do when you're a recruiter, and extrapolate. Well, if this kid's this good now and he's improving at this rate of knots, we've got to have him at least on our watch list.
And he's done it against the side, as you touched on, that are sitting second. He's doing it against Ajax are another young side as well, but he's come in and he doesn't just kick goals as well. Like, I remember watching him behind us in the rep game as well. He just makes things happen. He competes. The stuff that doesn't end up on the stat sheets that recruiters and good recruiters look for. People that stay involved even if the game's not going their way.
He's a very mature young man for 17, both mentally and physically. Physically, he's a good size, and then we've met him a couple of times through Big V events, etc. He's incredibly respectful, incredibly humble, just a really lovely kid. Qantas Oglu must have been doing backflips. How long were you on the phone to Con for?
Just an hour and 15 minutes.
A short call.
No, just a brief. How are you? No, he said it was great to get a win. Obviously, snap an 8-game losing streak. It was a really tight game. The first half it was pretty even. He did feel like they were controlling most parts of the game, though, but Ajax were really good at counter-attacking throughout the course of the afternoon. Williamstown, they gained enough opportunities, but they weren't quite able to put them away, and they were able to move it a bit faster in the third term. They managed to felt like they weren't too far away from really breaking the game open. They had a blistering start to the third, which got them in front a little bit, and then it was a bit of a nervy sort of wait. I think it was about 8 or 9 minutes waiting for that first goal in the final term. They got it, and it put them out in front, and from there they were able to carry the momentum through.
Did you get a hold of the buzz, Lachie Bossard, Ajax coach?
Yeah, he simply said that it wasn't good enough in the end, that they've got a few players that are unavailable at the moment, which is never ideal, but no, was disappointed with the result. It means that Ajax slide to third place on the ladder. It changes the whole dynamic of the relegation zone now. The Seawise move up to ninth. They're suddenly only a game away from safety.
Yeah. And speaking to Con Tazoglu a couple of weeks ago at one of these Big V functions, he was saying, I just feel like we're doing the right things. We're actually playing better footy than the win-loss results suggest. We just need a win. It could just change everything. We've just got to find one. I don't know where we find it and how we find it or who we find it against, but one win can change everything for this young group. So let's see how the Seawise go in future weeks. We spoke in the first segment, Premier Men's, about teams, contenders that got out of jail. Well, D-LA, they trailed Old Ivanhoe by a kick at the final change, but they managed to get the job done 10-20-80 to 10-12-72 over Old Ivanhoe at Waverley Oval.
Yeah, and somewhere Hugo Higginbotham is tearing his hair out of that scoreline, 10 goals, 20. They were down by as much as 12 points early in the final term, D-LA, but managed to kick the last 3 goals of the game to get over the line. Luke Healy was the hero here for the hosts. He kicked 3 goals for the match. He kicked consecutive majors in the final term to put D-LA out in front, give them the lead at the end of the match. And he's another one who's had an outstanding season in the forward line for D-LA. As a consequence of other results going their way, now D-LA move up to second on the ladder. They go a game clear of 3 different clubs. The Hoers, they fall to last place, and they're a game and a half away from safety. So a missed opportunity there for the Hoers to gain some ground on the teams just above them that are currently in the safe zone. But an important win for D-LA in their quest to secure a top 4 finish.
Amongst all the chaos, Brayden, one thing you can bank on in Premier B Men's?
Upsets.
No, collegians.
Collegians.
Well, you can bang on
2,
upsets
I suppose.
too.
Yeah, you got me there on a technicality.
No, collegians. What can't we say? We're running out of words for them. They're a bit boring. They're just winning games. It must get boring winning. But this was winning, and a statement win. 17-14, 116 to 3-8, 26 over Bo Morris. I remember I was tracking this around the grounds during the day, and I think at one stage Bo Morris were on like 3 behinds, and I thought, oh, this might be a cricket score. But to their credit, they fought back. A 90-point loss is heavy, but I imagine Geordie McKenzie and the boys are very pleased, and they're getting to the stage where do we start resting guys, including the big fella Hugh Johnson that I know had a big performance.
Well, Hugh Johnson, 37 disposals, 50 hit-outs and 3 goals. He was absolutely outstanding. Wow. You mentioned the Sharks' inability to hit the target or hit the scoreboard. It took them until 15 minutes into the third term to kick their first goal of the game. It was a defensive masterclass from the Lions. Geordie McKenzie, he described it as a solid 4-quarter effort.
We just took care of the process and the outcome took care of itself.
1 week at a time. Did acknowledge that it was an arm wrestle in the first term. Defensively, they were sound, but it took them a while to really put the score on the board. Both teams had an extra behind the ball all day, so defensively, Bo Morris were able to keep themselves in the hunt for a while. Geordie McKenzie was really pleased with the ball movement from the second quarter onwards, knowing when to go quick, knowing how to retain possession and be able to change the angles, particularly Trevor Barker, Beach Oval. They managed to do all this away from home, Collegians. So a really impressive performance. Josh Burke, the coach of the Sharks, he could only just pay credit to Collegians, how impressive they were. They had a game plan which they were able to stick to for about 1.5 quarters. Josh mentioned that they were only 8 points down halfway through the second term, but then things just got way out of hand from there. They'll look to regroup as they've been incredibly consistent throughout the course of the year. This was definitely an anomaly performance. And what it means for Collegians, they're still on top, of course. Bo Morris, they haven't moved on the ladder. They're still in 6th place, but they're now a game and a half away from the top 4. And for one of the teams that had one of the better percentages in the competition, that's not the case anymore. They've lost nearly 10% as a result of that game on Saturday.
They're a game and a half from the top 4. They're also a game and a half from the bottom 2 now in relegation as well. So they find themselves in that awkward sort of mid-table where are we looking up, are we looking down? Well, the next couple of weeks will determine that for Bo Morris. Coming up, they've got Old Ivanhoe, and then they've got Ajax and D-LA, so 2 teams above them, and then they finish with Carey and Camberwell, 2 teams kind of around them. So a bit of a mixed bag for Bowie on the run home. But, as is the case in Premier B, if you're good enough, you make it. It's up there for everybody. And that leads us to the Camberwell-Carey game, the 5th and final game of the round. We weren't exactly sure what to make of this, given their form lines coming in. But in the end, it was Old Campbell getting the job done.
Yeah, well, I mentioned Hugo Higginbotham and his sort of theories around goal kicking accuracy. When he heard this scoreline, he nearly fell off the chair at Glen Huntly Park. Old Campbell defeating Old Kerry by 15 points, despite having 5 fewer scores. 12-4, 76 to 8-13, 61, the final score of this match. Didn't start off all that well for the Wellers. Old Kerry led by 20 points at quarter time. They got off to a pretty hot start in the end, but then the Wellers steadied things afterwards. They kicked 11 of the last 15 goals of the match to win in the end. The Wellers, they keep their heat on the teams in the top 4. They move level with Ajax and Old Melburnians, so 3 teams sharing a 7-1 record. The Panthers sit in 7th place. It's pretty precarious for them because they're only 1 win above the relegation
They've lost 6
zone.
of their last 8, Old Kerry. They've got Collegians this week. So form continues on. That's going to be a tough one for them. Then they've got Old Melburnians who are up and about. We heard from NED NICHOLS. Then they've got Old Geelong, who are a team at the moment immediately below them, but level with them on points. And then they finish with Beau Morris and Old Ivanhoe. So again, a mixed bag for Kerry. So they are in, as you said, a precarious position right now.
Yeah, and that win, as I said, for Williamstown has just changed a few things. It added an extra dynamic to that relegation zone. We sort of thought that there was probably 8 and 2. Well, that's changed now as a result of the CY's upset at the weekend. And we'll have a look at the ladder, and the safest houses, Collegians, still sitting on top off the back of their solid 4-quarter performance, 90-point win, 13 and zip. Percentage has gone up to 202, which is remarkable at this stage of the season that it is that high. De La Salle 5 games behind them in second spot, 8-5 record. They're 1 game clear of Ajax, Old Melburnians, and Old Camberwell, who have all got a 7-6 record to this point. A game and a half behind them. We mentioned Beau Morris. Their percentage took a massive hit, though, sitting half a game behind the Sharks are both Old Kerry and Old Geelong. Old Kerry with 5 wins, Old Geelong with 4 wins and 2 draws. And then Williamstown, just 1 game behind them. They move up to a 4-9 record. Old Ivanhoe remain rooted at the bottom of the table, 3.5 wins to their name.
So this one doesn't quite feel like top 5, bottom 5 yet, finals and relegation. You've got Old Geelong sitting in 8th spot. They're only 2 games behind, but their percentage is 91. So the percentage is actually still quite decent. So I sort of feel like at the moment, the bottom 8 teams, the top 8 teams are all in the finals mix. A little bit different to the Premier Men's.
Yeah, and particularly what we've seen with teams who have struggled with form, they can find a way to sort of bounce back into it. We can see teams go on a run of defeats and then see them go on a run of victories. And Old Melburnians are a good example of that. They lost a couple to start the season, then they got a bit on a bit of a run, then they've fallen away, they've lost a few. So teams can get on a run really quickly. So for someone like Old Geelong, I mean, we could be looking at them in a fortnight. They could be in the top 4.
That's it. And they've left 6 points on the table in the last 2 weeks, right? They led until the final siren, had a draw 2 weeks ago against Beau Morris, and then on the weekend they coughed up a 6-goal lead. So they could easily put those 6 points into the mix. They are also level with 4th spot. But having said that, they've got Ajax this week. Ajax will be looking to bounce back. Then they've got Old Ivanhoe down the bottom. They've got Old Kerry who's around them. They've got Old Campbell and D-Lard just above them. That's their road to finish. So it sort of feels like the road home for all these teams is such a mixed bag, Brayden. Like no one's got an easy run. No one's got a particularly hard run. Everyone's just got the ladder scattered all over the place.
I think you're right. And you touch on some of these clubs where you might have thought coming into the season, the storylines we touched on in pre-season might come back into the fold late in the season. So, for example, Old Kerry, I think they were one of the top 2 everyone thought, look, they got Sam Grant, went away from VFL commitments. They just built well. They've performed below expectations. Beau Morris, I think a lot of people, the neutrals had him towards the relegation zone, lost a lot of experience.
Just a natural thing, right? Like they've gone up but lost a ton of good players.
Old Ivanhoe, many thought was premiership favourites. Go through that playing list. They got smashed with experience that went out the door. Collegians, they came down, added someone like Sam Frost. They've got Pinchbeck. They've got Hugh Johnson. They've got these guys. Could go through everyone. Old Geelong, Tom Gurrell, we've touched on. All these guys that in the VAFA community, a lot of clubs, they're not openly spruiking. We've got A, B and C, like you might see in other community football leagues, and you get these great stories of where did he come from, and that's what makes it so exciting and unpredictable.
Ajax, you know, we probably thought they were likely to go straight back down to Premier League. Well, they're right in the mix for finals, and we talked about this in Premier Men's. The percentage is going to come into it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 teams that have a percentage in the 90s at this point. Even Williamstown and Old Ivanhoe, by comparison, their percentages aren't great, but for Old Ivanhoe, to have 3 wins in your name and a percentage of 80 is actually quite strong, given that they've only got 3.5 wins to their name. So it's going to be really important coming the final run of the year.
And as weird as it sounds, your 2 losses against Collegians let's just assume for a moment Collegians go through and they don't lose, right? But the amount you lose to Collegians in those two games could actually be the determining factor of whether you make finals or whether you even stay up. And that sounds like a weird thing to say, but a little bit earlier, like we talked about with Old Haileybury, sometimes it's about loss minimisation as opposed to having big wins, because effectively when you think about points for and against, winning by 100 points, losing by 100 points, in a net scale, sort of ends up doing the same amount of things for your points for and against relative to each other. So if you've got the ability to actually even, sure, you might lose to Collegians, but you don't lose big, but everyone else is losing by 10, 12 goals and you only lose by 3 or 4, that's a 7 or 8 goal percentage boost you've got over every other team in the comp. So that's going to be a watch as well in the run home. If you are going to lose to Collegians, and there's nothing to say Collegians go through undefeated, but if you are going to lose, you want to be as competitive as you can. Don't put the cue in the rack. Don't give up in the last quarter. Don't let them kick 10 goals on you, because that might be the determining factor. And we saw exactly that with Beau Morris. They've lost nearly 10%. Now, they're a little bit different because they've obviously got the half-game gap, so it might not mean as much, but that's not necessarily going to be the case with other teams on the run-in. Yeah, so fascinating still. Lots to play out in Premier B, and as we know, as we've been saying all year, this one will definitely go all the way down to the final game of round 18. It's going to be thrilling. Coming up next, we will talk Prem C men's. We'll talk men's divisional footy as well, as For the Love of the Game continues. Keep up to date with everything that's happening around the VAFA by subscribing to our socials. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook and LinkedIn. Has someone just taken a screamer or kicked goal of the year? Send us your best and we might share them around the league. Join in the fun with all the best pics, videos, stories and reels from around the competition. They're all on VAFA socials. Search VAFA and VAFA Women's on your favourite platforms. This is For the Love of the Game, and we are talking Prem C men's now, and we've had some fantastic results and some really close games in this one as well. Prem C, as the road to September continues, it's a winding one. Glenira Old McKinnon, 12-10-82, defeated Ormond 12-5-77 by 5 points. A thrilling game at EE Gun Reserve. Great win for Glenira Old McKinnon, and a really important one as well. That's kicked them a game clear of the Monders, and now they're in a 4-way race to escape the drop zone. So that is a huge win for Glenira Old McKinnon. Fitzroy, 13-10-88, defeated St Bede's Mentone Tigers 7-10-52 by 6 goals. And again, a great win for the Roys, who sit top of the table at 12-1, and St Bede's now comfortably away from the relegation zone, but they're now 2 games out of the top 4, St Bede. So from that perspective, it makes their road back to September a little bit more tricky. Hampton Rovers, a massive win, 22-20-152, defeated Old Peninsula 2-2-14. So 42 scoring shots from the Hampton Rovers, who sit in 3rd spot. Parkdale Vultures, 12-10-82, defeated Mazenod 10-6-66. This was the game we talked about last week, the top 4 clash being so important. Parkdale sits 2nd, Mazenod sit in 4th spot. So a great win for the Vultures. They win it by 16 points. And then a thriller, the final game out at Marcelin. It was Marcelin by 1 straight kick. Well, not really. 6-11-47 to 6-5-41 over Pegs. It was Marcelin by 6 crooked kicks. They won by 6 points, 6-11 to 6-5 for Marcelin. And again, a really important win in the middle of the table as they look upwards and not downwards and stay clear of the drop zone. So here's the ladder in Prem C after 13 rounds of football. Fitzroy, a game clear of Parkdale. They're on 48, Parkdale on 44. A game further back to Hampton Rovers and Mazenod in 3rd and 4th. Now it's a 2-game gap, as I mentioned, to St Bede's Mentone Tigers. So the top 4 have kicked clear a little bit. They're on 32. Then it's a 5-game gap back to 6 spots. So very clearly it's a race in 5 for the top 4, and then the relegation race is the bottom 5. So it's split open a little bit like Premier Men's has now. You've got Marcelin, Pegs, Old Peninsula and Glenira all on 12 points. So that's 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th are all locked together on 12, and Ormond are 1 game back on 8. So the bottom 5 teams separated by 1 win.
It's a close relegation race, that one.
2 of those teams are going to be really stiff.
No, it's incredible. It's going to be it's just another division that's going to be really exciting in the run home. Division 1, got to look at now. I want to start at Pitcher Park here, Parkside and Oakley. You thought probably early in the last term this one was pretty much an easy win for Oakley. They were up by 40 points at one stage. Parkside chalked off 34 of the points they fell, just 6 points short in the end of an incredible comeback. 13-11-89 to 13-5-83, the final score. So Oakley getting away with one there, but holding on for the 4 points. It was certainly the closest game of the weekend. a fair few blowouts.
And that was
in this
fourth
one.
versus fifth too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So really important.
No, huge win for Oakley there. Paran were too good for St Mary's Salesian, 13-14, 92 to 3-8-26 at Toorak Park. UHSVU and Monash Blues. The Monash Blues were too good in this one at Brens Oval, 16-14, 110 to 7-9-51. And then a couple of big blowouts. Preston Bull Ants, firstly, over Brunswick, 135 points the final margin, 27-15, 177 to 6-6-42. But the big winners of the weekend, Q, 23 goals, 19, 157 to Old Yarra Cobras, 2-4-16. A 141-point win for Q.
That's huge for their percentage too.
Massive.
They've now got an 11-point percentage lead. They sit third over Parkside. They're now a game and 11% clear of them.
Yeah, no, it is a big result there for Q. As we look at the ladder now, Preston Bull Ants 14 from 14, 224% for them. 4 games clear of both Preston and Q, who sit second and third respectively. Paran and Q. Sorry, my apologies, Jace. Parkside, a game behind those two, and Oakley as well, with both with a 9-5 record. Their percentage separating those two. And then we move a couple of games back. St Mary's Salesian is 6th with an even 7-7 record. A couple of games behind them sit Brunswick with a 5-8 record. And Monash Blues, and they've got... and UHSVU, they've each got 2.5 wins to their name. And then Old Yarra Cobras still looking for their first win of the season.
Brunswick might be the only team at the moment in the 3 Premier men's divisions that are genuinely in limbo. They might be the only team in the top 3 tiers of men's footy that aren't in a finals race or a relegation race. Because right now, Brunswick sit 14 points behind the top 4, plus percentage, a lot of percentage, and they sit 3 games clear of relegation. So they are smack bang in the middle. Not to say they can't necessarily end up getting relegated, but things would have to change pretty drastically. But you think about the 2 top tiers we've already spoken about. Everyone's pretty much in a finals or a relegation race. Maybe Brunswick might be the only ones who aren't.
Well, they've got UHSVU, so that change could start this week.
That could make it a 2-game. Yeah, they could end up back in the relegation race. You're right. They're not out of the woods just yet.
Not just yet. No.
Let's talk Division 2, Brayden.
Yeah, it's tight here once we get to the ladder in a second. Canterbury had a good win, 18-12, 120 over Aquinas, 13-9, 87. Tight game between Elsternwick and South Melbourne District. Hugo Higginbotham, he mustn't have been kicking the goal kicking this week at Elsternwick. 6-18, 54, 7-11, 53. So some rough goal kicking there. Melbourne High School Old Boys, another terrific win that they've actually jumped up at the ladder, 15-16. 106 to 10-6, 66 over North Brunswick. The next game, Whitefriars, 13-8, 86, defeated Powerhouse, 10-12, 72 in a crucial finals-like game. And Therapanola, another good win for them. They're having a good middle part of the season, 13-8, 86, defeated West Brunswick, 11-7, 73. Now, gentlemen, we spoke about how tight the Premier B ladder was holistically, but Division 2, this is tight. So, Canterbury, Melbourne High School Old Boys, Whitefriars, all at 10-4, separated by percentage. A game further back, Elsternwick and Powerhouse on 36 points. So 5 has to go into 4. That is going to be an extremely tight finals race in the coming weeks. West Brunswick, Therapanola, they're on 24. So they're probably, as you said, in a bit of limbo, depending what happens with competition structures and things like that. South Melbourne Districts are on 16. So North Brunswick, who have performed above expectations, and Aquinas are on 8 points. So, yeah, it's shaping up to be a brilliant season the back half, the last month of the season out in Division 2.
Yeah, Division 2 women's and Division 2 men's. We've been talking about in recent weeks just how tight their races are, particularly at the top. 2 games in Division 3 men's. It was the top 2 teams playing the bottom 2 teams. So as you'd imagine, there are a couple of absolute spankings here. Wattle Park, 28-19, 187, defeated Latrobe University 6-3-39 by 148 points. The Animals remain top of the table. They will, you would think, win the minor premiership. They're 4 games clear plus a lot of percentage, so basically 5 games clear. Richmond Central 27-15, 177, defeated Albert Park 5-5-35, so 142-point margin there. So Wattle Park ahead of Richmond Central. They're 2 games clear of Hawthorn on 24 points, and then Latrobe and Albert Park bring up the field in men's Division 3. That is the men's comp for this week. After the break, Lauren Atkinson from Fitzroy and VAFA Media will join us. We'll talk VAFA Women's next on For the Love of the Game.
Footy finals are almost here, and there's no better way to kick them off than at the 2026 William Buck VAFA Finals Luncheon. Join MC Nat Edwards, AFL legends and Brownlow medalists James Hurd and Jimmy Bartel, plus Jason Bennett and the VAFA Media team for a live For the Love of the Game finals preview. Friday, September 4th at the RACV City Club. Enjoy a premium 2-course lunch, beverage package, and an unforgettable afternoon of football stories and finals insights. Book your tickets now at vafa.com.au. Don't miss out on one of the biggest events on the VAFA calendar.
This is For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk VAFA Women's with our VAFA Women's expert, Lauren Atkinson. Loz, thanks so much for your time. Great to have you on For the Love of the Game.
Thanks for having me. How are we?
So we're great, thank you. Loz is a double threat, of course. She plays for Fitzroy in Premier Women. She's our Premier B reporter as well. So she's across everything that's going on. We're going to start with Premier Women's, Loz. And we'll start with your team, the Roys. 4-2-26 went down to Q 5-5-35 at Victoria Park. Tell us a little bit about the game.
It was a pretty close one. Good contest. We've got quite a few outs at the moment. Don't want to make excuses, but we've had to mix things up a bit. They got the early start, kicked 2 in that first quarter, but we stayed in it. I think we kicked a goal each term, just down going into the water. We kind of thought we'd be able to do it, but unlucky in the end.
There's not much between those teams in the middle of the ladder. We're talking West Brunswick, Kew, Old Brighton, yourselves, St Kevin's, Old Geelong. In fact, from 3rd to 8th in this competition, there's one game separating the entire team, that whole group of teams. Every week is obviously just another massive challenge.
Yeah, for sure. It makes it interesting, but it's kind of hard to predict.
Caulfield and Old Scotch sort of sit top of the table. Caulfield 44 points, Scotch 40. So those two have kicked clear last year's grand finalists. Tell us a little bit about those two teams and what you've made of their performances so far this year.
Yeah, I don't think it's a surprise. We know how good they are. They've only had 1 loss each, right? Would love to see someone else bring one of them down, just make it a bit more exciting. And I think potentially we could see that happen back end of the season. But yeah, they've just got such good teams, been playing together for a while now. It feels like it's just so well drilled.
And this is why 3rd and 4th are going to be so fascinating, because last year we came into the Premier Women's Final Series, Maddie, and again thinking there's a couple of clear standouts, Caulfield and it was St Kevin's and Old Scotch, and then Kew with a 4th team, and they almost got over the line. I remember we had the 4 finals games, and they were decided by a total of 23 points or something. So the thing is, if you get there, you just never know.
No, it was a crazy final series last year, and again, it's going to be a really competitive race to the finals. The two teams that make that 3rd and 4th spot, you'd suspect that Caulfield and Old Scotch are going to round out the top 2. But whoever finishes in that 3rd and 4th spot, they're certainly going to earn that opportunity to get through to September. Because as you say, a game separating 3rd from 8th, it is a very tight race indeed.
We'll run through the scores from the weekend. Caulfield 9-12-66 defeated Old Brighton 2-4-16. So a statement win there from Caulfield. Old Geelong, who have found a bit of form, they're 6-9-45 over Westbourne 1-8. 37-point win there for the Oggettes. St Kevin's 4-8-32 defeated West Brunswick. Again, a great win for St Kevin's, who are making a late charge. 4-8-32 to 2-8-20, so a 2-goal win there to St Kevin's, and we've already talked about Kew over Fitzroy by 9 points. Any of those results stand out to you, Loz, as being a little surprising?
I wouldn't say surprising, but the St Kevin's one, I have a feeling that they're going to find some form and make a late charge. And I think, we heard Taylor Watson, I think, is out suspension for West Brunswick, so that might make things a bit harder for them.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing about St Kevin's is now that win has elevated them within, in that mix again. They're 2 games behind Kew, but still very much in the mix. Let's flip over to Prem B Women's, Loz, where you're our VAFA Media weekly reporter. Let's go through the results there. Old Melburnians 2-2-14 over Old Zabs 1-6. Willie CYMS 3-6-24 defeated Glenira Old McKinnon 2-8-20 by 4 points. Beaumaris big winners again, 10-20-80 defeated Old Yarra Cobras 1-5-11. And Port Melbourne Chargers, what a win for them, 16-14-110 over Parkside 3-18. Talk us through the Premier B women's season so far, Loz, and what you've made of it, because right now we look at the ladder. Beaumaris still one of our undefeated teams. They're 13-0. Then it's Old Melburnians on 36. 2 games back to Port Melbourne on 28. A game further back to Old Zabs and Willie. So Old Zabs are 4th, Willie are 5th. A game back to Parkside on 20. Then Glen Ira a game further back and Old Yarra. So right now it sort of feels like there's probably 6 maybe of the 8 teams who are still in the mix for finals, given Parkside sits 6th, but they're only 1 game out of the 4.
Yeah, it's a bit wild. It's kind of similar to Prem A, I feel, in that there's the top side kind of locked in,
Yep.
and then bottom trailing, and then everyone in the middle is just competing for those final spots. I feel like Glen Ira is making a late charge, but they might have left it too late. But yeah, it's been really impressive, especially with how the teams that have moved up, so Parkside and Glen Ira.
Yeah.
Parkside did the double jump,
Yeah.
and they're still both in the finals race, really.
Yeah, and Glen Ira, Old McKinnon under Mel Keys, and obviously they've come up after winning a flag as well, so it's a huge challenge, but they've adapted really well. Slow to start, and now they've found their rhythm.
Well, they've got a really healthy percentage of 105 as well, which is fantastic. What about Williamstown? They're currently in 5th only percentage outside the top 4. I remember earlier in the year they came down from Premier. Are they a side that we should consider dangerous for the rest of the season, even if they finish in the bottom half of the top 4?
Yeah, I definitely would be a bit worried. Wouldn't want to face them in finals. We know like how good they've been. They did well in Prem A last year. And since moving down, I think they've won 6 out of their 9 games. The only one that was kind of a surprise to me was a few weeks ago they lost to Parkside by 66 points, I think it was. So not sure what happened with that one. But other than that, yeah, super strong. And we know their top talent. They've had Shani Whiting from VFL playing with them. So if she's in, I think
Always
watch out.
Yeah.
And they've got a big game against Port Melbourne Chargers this week too, Williamstown.
that's
so
a huge game.
if they want to creep into the top 4, that's going to be a massive opportunity for them to get a result there.
Port Chargers, let's talk about them for a little bit here, Loz. It's their second season in the VAFA, of course, and they've consolidated really well. They're sitting 7 and 6 and right in the mix.
Yeah, for sure. I thought they had a bit of a slide mid-season. I think they lost 4 in a row in around 6 to 9. But they seem to have turned that around now. Had a big win over Old Zabs and then that huge win against Parkside on the weekend.
Let's have a look at round 14 and maybe get your tips for these games. Loz, Glen Ira, Old McKinnon take on Parkside at Packer Park. Who do you like?
I think I'm going to have to go Glen Ira. They're in great form at the moment.
Yeah, that's the 2 teams who have both come up going head-to-head. Bo Morris versus Old Zabs, 2 o'clock at William Street Reserve. Can anyone touch Bowie this year?
I think Old Zabs might have come close last time, but I've got it back in Bo Morris.
Old Yarra Cobras take on Old Melburnians, 2 o'clock at Doncaster Reserve.
Got to go Old Melburnians.
And the final game of the week, that one that Maddie mentioned, a fascinating game, could be the match of the round. Williamstown CYMS taking on Port Melbourne Chargers at Fearon Reserve. 4:45, bit of Saturday night footy. Who do you like, CYs or the Chargers?
I'm going to back in the CYs.
CYs to win it. Loz, thanks so much for your time. Best of luck to you for the road ahead with the Roys, and keep up the fantastic work for VAFA Media. We love reading your comments every week.
Thanks so much.
Lauren Atkinson joining us on For the Love of the Game. Let's talk women's divisional. Run through the results and the ladders from the weekend. It was round 13. Old Carey 3-3-21 defeated Latrobe 2-5-17 by 4 points in Division 1 women's. Big win for Powerhouse. 10-9-69 defeated Oakley 3 straight 18. A 51-point win for Powerhouse. Good win for Ormond as well. 5-6-36 defeated Marcel and 1 straight goal by 30 points. And the final game of Division 1 women's for the weekend was Whitefriars 2-8-20 defeated Monash Blues 1-5-11 by 9 points. So we take a look at the league ladder. After 13 rounds of football, it's still very tight at the top. It's Ormond and Marcellin tied on 40 points. A big advantage percentage-wise for the Monders. A game further back to Powerhouse on 36, then a game and a half to Monash Blues on 30. They sit 4th. And then outside the 4, a game and a half gap to Whitefriars on 24, Old Carey on 20, Oakley on 10 and Latrobe Uni on 8 as we look at Division 2 women's.
Speaking of tight at the top, Jace, that's exactly what we've got in Div 2 as well. And we're going to have it determined one way or another who's actually sitting just head and shoulders above the pack this weekend, but we'll start with the fixtures that took place in round 13. Richmond Central, 5-7-37 over MCCFC, 1 straight 6. De La Salle with a 21-point win over UHSVU, 5-6-36 to 2-3-15. St Mary's Salesian, the biggest winners of the weekend, 5-11-41 to Hampton Rovers, managing 2 behinds. And Beau Morris, 8-8-56, defeating Old Camberwell, 3-20.
That was a big win because it puts both of them on 32 points now in 4th and 5th. And St Mary's big win. Looks like they've gone back in front. These two teams, St Mary's and Richmond Central, nothing to split them.
Well, for now.
Until this weekend.
For now, this weekend, the two teams on top of the ladder currently will face each other. St Mary's Salesian and Richmond Central, both tied on 9 wins apiece. De La Salle also on 9 wins as well.
And that's the good news for De La. One of those teams has got to lose. So if De La can win this week, they'll at least jump into the top 2.
Unless it's a draw.
But if they win, they go past both of them.
Well,
then they go
that's
top.
True.
That'd be the best case result.
That would be ideally. But yeah, I mean, and you mentioned it with Beau Morris as well. So there's 1 win separating 1st and 5th at the moment. Beau Morris and Old Camberwell, both on 8 wins, sitting just 1 game behind those top 3. Then a 3-game gap behind them to UHSVU. MCCFC with 4 wins, and then Hampton Rovers sitting at the bottom of the table with 3 wins.
So 5 and a 4 doesn't go in Division 2 Women's. It's going to be a fascinating run home, and we look forward to that big game this weekend, 1st versus 2nd. It's going to be fantastic. Let's talk Div 3.
Division 3, Hawthorn survived a massive scare, 2-4-16 to 2-3-15 over Caulfield Grammarians. That would have been one of the upsets of the season in all grades of footy. Parkdale Vultures, 7-3-45 with a 4-6-30 win over Old Haileybury. And then Prairie Collegians with the greatest nickname that Matty always touches on, 8-16-64 to 0-2-2 against Old Yarra Cobras. Now touching on the ladder.
Well, just before you do, that Parkdale Old Haileybury game, that was huge. That was 1st versus 3rd, and that's now kicked Parkdale a game clear of the Bloods.
Yeah, exactly right. And it just goes to show how tight these top 3 are. They're probably a class above at the moment. It's a real toss of the coin. But Parkdale Vultures, that percentage, I don't know if it keeps dropping now at 449.35.
Sack the coach.
Disgraceful.
It's been one of the great storylines. Hawthorn are also on 44 points. These two sides won't play each other in the running either, so that's something to keep an eye on. So Parkdale are in the box seat to earn the minor premiership, but the top 2 is obviously the all-important. A game further back are the Bloods, Old Haileybury. And then 3 games further back at Prairie Collegians, they're going to play finals football. They're comfortable there. Caulfield are 5th with 2 wins, and then Old Yarra Cobras with 1 bring up the rear.
Division 4 Women's, it's tight at the top there as well, as you'd imagine. It's a 3-way tie for top spot. Let's have a look at the results from round 13 in Div 4. Mazenod big winners, 8-11-59 over Fitzroy, who did not score. Aquinas 4-4-28 defeated Wattle Park, 8 behind, so a 20-point win there to Aquinas, despite having exactly the same number of scoring shots, 8 apiece. Canterbury won by forfeit over Old Zab's seconds team. Albert Park, 6-5-41, defeated North Brunswick 2-3-15 by 26 points. And Brunswick, 6-4-40, defeated the Muggers 5-3-33. So we take a quick look at their ladder after 13 rounds. And it is, as I mentioned, a 3-way tie at the top on 36 points. Mazenod, Aquinas and Wattle Park. Then a 2-game gap to Old Zabs and Canterbury. So Canterbury got the forfeit. They now join Old Zabs on 28 points. So it was Old Zabs that forfeited. So not only has it cost Old Zabs the 4 points, but it's now brought Canterbury up to 5th. So 5th and 4th now tied together on 28. A game further back is Melbourne Uni. Half a game to Albert Park and Brunswick, then Fitzroy and North Brunswick bringing up the rear. So again, we look at that and we think, well, there's probably 6 into 4 in the Division 4 women's at the moment as we take a look at Div 5.
Oh, and I tell you what, this weekend in Div 5 is going to be absolutely enormous across the entire competition. But let's have a look at the weekend's results. Firstly, Parkside, a 14-point win over Glen Ira Old McKinnon, 3-4-22 to 1-2-8. Preston Bull Ants, 1-7-13, defeating Elsonwick 1-3-9. West Brunswick getting the job done over Monash Blues, 2-4-16 to just the 1 behind. South Melbourne with a win over St Kevin's, 3-6-24 to 2-2-14. The only other result of the weekend was Ormond and De La Salle, which the Moners won as a result of forfeit. We look at the ladder now. And how it sits at the moment is Preston Bull Ants with a 10-3 record. They're a game and a half clear of St Kevin's in 2nd spot. Elsonwick in 3rd. Ormond in 4th. Ormond and West Brunswick are tied with 7 wins apiece. Half a game behind them are Parkside. Half a game behind them, South Melbourne. And then there's a big gap, a 4-game gap between the bottom 3. Glen Ira, Old McKinnon, Monash Blues and De La Salle. And why I said this weekend is going to be significant. Preston Bull Ants and Ormond, 1st v 4th, play each other. St Kevin's and Elstonwick, 2nd v 3rd,
Wow.
they play each other.
Mega wall time in Division 5 Women's.
West Brunswick and Parkside, 5th and 6th, they play each other.
Jeez.
So the top
That's a
6
huge
all
weekend.
going head to
Because
head.
the top 7 are still in the finals race, right?
They are, in truth. Yeah, outside of that 6, South Melbourne are the only other team that are a realistic finals contender.
They're only one
from
game
here.
out.
Yeah, they are.
They're sitting in 7th, but they're only one game out of the 4.
And they're all playing each other this weekend.
Wow.
So lots of questions are going to be answered this weekend in Div 5.
So that is the women's comp for round 13. So much to look forward to. We'll update you on everything next week right here on For the Love of the Game. Next, Senshi joins us. We'll talk Holmesglen Under 19 Premier with LACHIE MOIR as For the Love of the Game continues. Looking for VAFA updates on the go? Download the brand new VAFA app today. Get live scores, fixtures, ladders, and all the latest VAFA news right at your fingertips. Whether you're a player, supporter, or just love local footy, the VAFA app keeps you in the game. Search VAFA in your app store and download it now. This is For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk Under 19 Premier. We welcome in Sench Footy. Hey, Senchi.
It's good to be here for another week.
Is it though? We're about to go through the results.
Yeah.
Is it good to be here?
Yeah, I think I went 4 out of 5.
Oh, okay.
We won't talk about that 5th tip. But
That's true. That's true. Lockie went 4 out of 5 as well. Speaking of LACHIE Moir, our Under 19 Premier expert, joins us. G'day, Lock.
G'day, good to be back. Yeah, condolences to Sench, mate. Tough afternoon having to review this one for you.
We will we'll come to that one shortly. We're going to start at Waverley Oval. We haven't had too many massive blowouts in Under 19 Premier this year, but we do know that teams that have been damaged by injury at the top tier, like a Caulfield at senior level, have had to put a lot of their better players up to seniors, Lockie, and that means their 19s are left vulnerable and exposed by having to bring in school kids, etc. And D-La certainly capitalised on the weekend. D-La sell 23-15, 153. Caulfield 4-125. It was D-La by 128 points.
Yeah, that's right. And D-La really got hold of them sort of from the offset. And, we mentioned it quite a bit with Caulfield, just player availability and, injury and all that sort of stuff really hurting them. So speaking to Coach Cooper Rule, he's just focused for the rest of the year on trying to avoid relegation. And he's really confident that they can do that. But he was full of praise for D-La Sally. He really thinks that Andy Otten's got them humming and they're really starting to play some good footy. But yeah, it's a really tough period for Caulfield with their availability and the amount of injuries and stuff they have. So let's just hope they can sort of stay out the season with some good performances.
Yeah, D-La are looming as a team to watch. They sit equal second alongside St Kevin's. They're obviously playing in cracking form. But the team they're all chasing is the Tunners.
Yes, indeed they are. And they managed to get a win at the weekend, Lockie. 16-804 to 13-987. It was a good fight back from Parkdale, but this game was won at the start. A blistering opening term from the Tunners.
Yeah, that's right. Their first quarter was probably some of the best footy I've seen being played all year. They were out of the blocks really quick. Parkdale did well to fight back sort of over the final 3 quarters. Travis O'Donoghue, speaking to him, interestingly, he actually wasn't overly thrilled with the performance. He thinks that if they want to sort of win a premiership and beat the better sides, you've got to be consistent over those 4 quarters and not just show up in the first quarter. Parkdale, they had some very good players. Jordan Burgess, he's continuing to improve after his injury. They also had Dan Jackson as well. He's a 2-way runner that really gets the ball across the ground and provides them with some good spread. So Parkdale feel like they've got a lot of momentum heading into the big game next week against St Bede's. But yeah, Old Brighton just too good in the end after that first quarter.
Yeah, that'll be great, that local rivalry game. And speaking of the Tigers, they'll enter in some form, Brayden.
Yeah, it took care of another local rival in Beaumont, 17-13 to 115 to 5-6-36 at Mentone Reserve. Lockie, how'd this one play out?
Yeah, another big win here. Convincing win from St Bede's Mentone. Speaking to the coach, Sam Hecker, he was sort of saying, although the margin was convincing, Beaumont can be very dangerous once they get their ball movement going and get that sort of control off half back at sort of their game plan and what they try and do. Midfield dominated though. Angus Shepherdson, really good game from him. Shout out to Lockie Hecker as well. He booted 4 goals, so he was instrumental. And their defence obviously was excellent, limiting Beaumont to only 36 points.
Is it Panic Station, Senchi, down at Camberwell? Old Scotch now. Are they? Is it over? Has the air gone out of the balloon?
No, they still, in their run home, they still play the bottom 3 sides, so there's still plenty of hope for Scotch. But they went down to St Kevin's 12-8-80 to 8-5-53. What can you tell us, Lockie?
Yeah, disappointing for you, Sench, mate. Probably still hurts. speaking to Coach Paul Greenham.
Yeah, you really.
Coach.
I love the sympathy in your voice, Lockie.
Yeah, well, I was hoping old Zabs could get me over the line because I would have made another one up. But anyways, 4 each, so that'll play. But no, speaking about St Kevin's and Old Scotch, 4-quarter performance from St Kevin's. He's really confident with that performance, given how sort of tight the ladder is. He's really happy that they can beat the better sides. O'Brien and Harmon in defence were instrumental. We've spoken about their big forwards as well. Really hard to sort of stop on their day, and they capitalised on their opportunities. And no disgrace at all from Old Scotch. They were just beaten by a better side on the day.
And the final game of the weekend, you mentioned Old Zabs, and you were hoping they'd get the job done. They couldn't quite over Uni Blues, who have been one of the great stories. They've surged from the bottom, have the Blues, and they ran out winners 16-7, 103 over Old Zabs, 11-17, 83. So Zabs with 5 more scoring shots, but they fell 20 points short.
Yeah, this is one of the great wins from the Blues. They had 6 players back up from the other game, so that's huge.
Wow.
They took time to settle, but their defensive pressure in the end just became the difference. And we sort of speak about Zab's transition game. Their defending and their sort of ability to stop that was one of the reasons they won the game. So really, really good win. And their pressure around the ball, and especially with their rotation management as well, considering they had those players play the 2 games. So it was really good to see. And, yeah, they're really playing some good stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how they go come finals time.
They've won 5 of their last 6, the Blues.
They had a 15-year-old in this game too, Max Wilcock.
Wow.
Yeah.
15-year-old uni student. What's he studying?
Smart kid. Yeah. I bet he's not a ruckman.
He's neuroscience or something. What's he doing?
So Uni Blues next month, they play the top 4.
Yeah.
So
their finals start now, basically, don't
pretty
they?
much, yeah.
Yeah. So that leaves the ladder after 13 rounds. You've got Old Brighton, who sit 2 games clear on 40 points. They're 10-3. 2 games clear of the next 4 teams. St Kevin's, D-La, St Bede's Mentone Tigers and Old Zabs all on 32 points. So Old Zabs on the outside looking in on percentage. It's only 4 points outside. Then you've got Old Scotch 1 game further back on 28. Half a game to Uni Blues on 26. Parkdale on 16. Caulfield on 14. Beaumaris on 8. So right now you would say comfortably the top 7 still in the race for the top 4, the final 4, Lockie.
Yeah, 100%. And it's really close. Obviously, 32 points from 2nd to 5th is quite remarkable. And then you've got Old Scotch in 6th who are only a win out. So it's still very tricky to sort of decipher who's going to be there come finals time. But, yeah, there's some teams hitting form and it's just hard to split at the moment, really, isn't it?
So the 2 tips last week, you both picked 4 each, Senshi and Lockie. So Sench leads at the moment 44-38. 6-tip lead. Let's look ahead to round 14. And we're going to start with first versus third. What a game this will be. Old Brighton taking on De La Salle, 9:20 at Brighton Beach. Senshi, you have the honour.
De La Salle.
De La Salle over Old Brighton, an upset. Lockie?
Old Brighton for me here, I think, at home. And, yeah, I really like the footy they're playing, so I'll go with them.
8th versus 4th as Parkdale take on St Bede's Mentone Tigers, 9:20 at Jerry Green. Another rivalry game between the Vultures and the Tigs.
Yeah, St Bede's for me.
Yeah, St Bede's as well.
St Bede's across the board. Uni Blues taking on St Kevin's. This is our KTV game, 11:35 at Crawford Oval. St Kevin's, as we mentioned, sitting 2nd. Uni Blues sit 7th, but they've been on a roll. They've won 5 of their last 6, and if they are to start challenging that top 4, it's got to start now. They're just 1.5 games off 2nd spot, the Blues. It's absolutely ridiculous with all those teams locked together on 32. So the Blues and St Kevin's, 11:35. You can see it live and exclusive on Community TV from Crawford Oval. Sench, who do you like?
The Blues.
Blues for you to keep on rolling and knock off the 2nd place St Kevin's. Lockie, who do you like?
I'll take St Kevin's. Need to make up ground, so another strategic tip here.
Well played by you. Caulfield sit 9th. We talked about their struggles. They take on Old Scotch. It's a must-win game for the Cardinals, who sit 6, 2 p.m. at Glen Huntly Park. If the Cardinals are to make a late run here at September, they've got to keep winning.
They'll win, yeah.
Yeah, shock there from Senshi. I'll go Old Scotch as well.
Not prepared to take the strategic tip this week is Lockie.
No, definitely not.
And the final game of the weekend, Zabs have dropped from 2nd to 5th just based on that one loss. They now sit 5th against Beaumaris sitting in 10th, 2 p.m. at Stradbroke Park. Zabs or the Sharks?
Yeah, you can't tip against the Zabs here.
Lockie?
Yeah, Zabs will bounce back.
Excellent. Looking forward to another big round 14 of Holmesglen Under 19 Premier. Lockie, we'll catch you next week to talk through it.
Thanks, guys.
Footy finals are almost here, and there's no better way to kick them off than at the 2026 William Buck VAFA Finals Luncheon. Join MC Nat Edwards, AFL legends and Brownlow medalists James Hird and Jimmy Bartel, plus Jason Bennett and the VAFA Media team for a live For the Love of the Game finals preview. Friday, September 4th at the RACV City Club. Enjoy a premium 2-course lunch, beverage package and an unforgettable afternoon of football stories and finals insights. Book your tickets now at vafa.com.au. Don't miss out on one of the biggest events on the VAFA calendar.
It's time now for Sench Watts and Senchy shout-outs. And last time we spoke, Senchy, I think our unbeaten segment, we had 10 teams across the VAFA that hadn't lost a game all year. Where are we sit right now?
We're down to 7.
We've lost a few.
Yeah. So the 7 we'll start in the women's. Prembe Women's, Bo Morris.
And they're the only women's team that's undefeated for the season. Yeah,
correct.
Great performance from them.
Prembe Men's Collegians, Prembe Reserves De La Salle, Prem C Reserves Fitzroy, Interdivisional, Div 1 Men's Preston Bullants, Div 3 Men's Wattle Park, and then thirds Div 5 Masala are also undefeated, but they've had a draw, so
yep,
you decided.
Technically unbeaten.
Yeah.
It's sort of like getting a tip when you pick the draw, isn't it?
I'd know all about that.
You would, indeed. Let's talk some milestones, because as we've spoken a couple of times, VAFA Women's Comp's been around long enough now that players that have been there from the outset and played a lot of games are up around that 100 mark. We've had a couple more become the first player at their club to play 100 women's games.
Yeah, so we had Jessie Gleeson for the Ogs, Old Geelong on the weekend to play. First Old Geelong player to play 100 games, women's player to play 100 games. Izzy Rankin Ward was the first omelette, so she was out here on the weekend to play 100. They both got the win on the weekend, which is awesome. And then this weekend, Casey Jagger will be the first South Melbourne women's player to reach the milestone. So,
Yeah, congratulations to all of them. That's a wonderful achievement and something that, it lives on the honour board forever. You were the first player ever to play 100 games at your footy club. It's a wonderful achievement. Now, this time of the year, we know with players away, we've spoken about it a couple of times at different sections throughout the show, players are getting called upon sometimes to double up and play games. Often it's at the lower levels, but at times, the players are called upon to maybe do the double header in a day, and Luke Maharajan did exactly that on the weekend.
Yeah, so in the morning he kicked 5 for the 19s, and then he backed it up in the seniors and had 12 touches and played a role in the win against Old Overno.
So that was for D-La?
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 in the under-19s, and then, I guess what, mate? Leave your boots on.
It looked like he was playing a bit of a half-back role from just looking at the stats. So
you may not know this question without notice, but was it 19s at the 9:20 slot, then he had the reserves to recover and into the seniors, or did they go back-to-back?
I reckon it was 11:40 start for the...
Right, so he literally did as you're running off the field. Mate, no, just turn around.
Because he was the KTV game. So,
yeah, that's right, of course. So you'd be warmed up.
Yeah.
That's the upside.
Tyson Nagel for Old Overno, he played St Kilda VFL on the Friday and then backed up, and I think he was one of their top 3 on the Saturday.
What a talent he is as well. Fantastic to have him back playing some VAFA footy. And again, we mentioned Ethan Phillips, actually. We didn't talk about him, but we spoke about him off air. At St Kevin's, he was best on for Scob on the weekend. Again, to have players of that quality coming back at this time of the year and potentially playing enough games to qualify for finals is great for the competition.
Yeah, as we touched on, they were missing a lot, and just to have his name on the whiteboard, the club would have been very happy, and unfortunately it didn't make a difference for Scob going down to Old Scotch, but I think it qualifies him now as well. So I'm not sure what the VFL ladder is. Jay, you're the expert there. If
St Kilda, St Kilda won't make it.
Well, could we? He's the type of man that goes into defence, but the swing man, him and Justin Kazitsky, what if they were together in the forward line?
Gee, that'd be pretty handy, wouldn't it? Speaking of former AFL/VFL players, we had another one make their first appearance for the VAFA over the weekend.
Yeah, Jay Kennedy Harris, the ex-Demon. I think he played 55-odd games for Melbourne. Old Camberwell reserves. So if they get him going up into the ones...
He'd be handy. He'd be like the Clinton Young kicking 8 last week in the Resis.
Yes. Clinton Young backed it up with 5 in the Resis.
Did he kick 5? Oh, he's had a quiet day. They must have rested him in the back pocket for 3 quarters or something.
He won't feature in time, watch it.
Now, you've been putting in the hard yards, burning the midnight oil, just going through, just crunching the numbers. You've had your abacus out. You've been working feverishly behind the scenes, just putting a little bit of governance and rigour around the Senchlow.
Yes, well, he's got the Senchlow, which he's brought up a couple of times, and he did so again last week. And I challenged him that he was counting the hit-outs, just raw hit-outs, and that was having way too big an influence on the overall. So what I did, I thought I'll put my money where my mouth is, and I'll go and crunch the numbers, and I'll redo his Senchlow, but we'll subtract hit-outs from the ranking points. So everything else is still there.
Yep.
Hit outs to advantage still count and all of that.
So just to be clear, the Senchlo essentially is you go through the rankings points and you allocate votes according to who are the highest ranking players on the ground in every Premier Men's game.
Yeah, correct. 3, 2, 1 for the top 3.
Yep. So if we now take out the hit outs, because who did you have in yours? It was mainly Ruckman, wasn't it? Leading last
Billy
week.
Coates, Will Clark.
Yep.
Yeah.
So your theory was the hit outs are just skewing the Senchlo. So you've got your own. You've got the Matty low.
Yes, I do. All right, we'll go with that. I'll go around the table. Who do you think is leading the Matty low?
Campbell Lane.
Whoever's winning the disposal count. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
I reckon Harry Hill was the leading midfielder.
Yeah, you're right, he was.
On my one, so I'll stick with him.
Harry Hill is out in front, but it is very close at round 13. So Harry Hill's got 15 votes to his name. Then there are 2 players sitting 2 votes behind him. Campbell Moorfield of University Blacks and Henry Brown of Old Scotch have each got 13 votes to their name.
Just Campbell Moorfield, that's a good effort.
Yeah, 1 vote behind him.
Kick-ins. Do we count kick-ins? Maybe we should be taking kick-ins out of the equation as well. That'll be the Brayden low. The May low. The May low will have no hit-outs and no kick-ins.
Harry Broderick is in 12 votes. Then Sam Fisher and Campbell Lane each on 11. And the Seckles, Brady and Durris, both on 10 votes.
Geez, that'd make for a good Woodrow medal count at the end of the year if it ends up something like that. That close.
A distinct lack of ruckman inside.
So Billy Coates goes from about 30 votes to, 5 votes?
So Bill Coates is on 8. Will Clark is the leading ruck on 9 votes.
But the reality is Billy will he'll pull some votes from the umpires because he's just such a dominant presence. And when you are getting the number of hit-outs and clearances that he's having, he will get some credit from the umpires surely for that because he's been arguably, Senchi, in your opinion, is he the most influential player in the comp this year, Billy?
Yeah, from what I've seen, definitely. Matty would have more of a...
Who do you reckon the most influential player in the comp is in terms of this player means the most to their team at Premier Men's? Take them out and they are a much lesser team.
It probably is a key position player, be it a ruckman or a forward still. I think that's still worth admitting. I would think Will Clark is probably, certainly one of the most important players in the competition. He ain't Coates. I was just trying to make a point mostly about the fact that, we're putting too much weight on just hit-outs and not hit-outs to advantage.
You're trying to steal my segment, are you?
No, not at all. I just wanted to make a bit of a point. One thing I will mention, though, in terms of how many games it actually affects, it averages out to about 1 game a week, stays the same.
Yeah.
All of the others change. Round 7, I think we had 3 games where taking out the hit-outs had no impact on the Senchlo or the Matlow. Maybe it would have affected the Maylow.
Maybe the Maylow.
But generally, it out to about 1 game per round would stay the same.
Speaking about rucks, before we finish, can we just touch... I'm not sure if you've touched on it earlier, but Hugh Johnson's game.
No, well, we brushed over it, so I think it's definitely worth a Senchi shout-out.
So we had 37 touches, 22 contested, 3 goals, 13 clearances, 50 hit-outs on the weekend.
For Collegians.
Yeah. Remarkable.
He probably gets the 3 votes regardless.
Yeah,
you would hope so.
He gets the 3 votes in the Prem B Senchlo over the weekend. Hey, let's talk big bags. Thanks to Sharon. And while we talked about James Stewart, he was the only double-figure goal kicker over the weekend. He booted 11 for Uni Blues seniors. He's now got 57 for the season and has jumped 12 goals clear of Charlie McIsaac. We had 3 players on 8. Ben Raimondo from the Richmond Reserves, he booted 8. Alex Johnson from the Preston Bull Ants Seniors kicked 8. And Will Llewellyn from Q Seniors also 8. Couple of goal kickers on 7. Alex Downey from Uni Blues Reserves and Corey Zielinski from Ajax Thirds. They both kicked 7. 18 players kicked 6 over the weekend. 18 players. That might be the most I reckon we've had across the course of the year. Admittedly, the weather was quite good and the ground's starting to dry out a little bit. So some big names there. We mentioned Matt Grocott, Will Clark, Mahi Patel we've already touched upon, all kicked 6. Which brings us to Tunwatch. And the man who now leads Tunwatch also kicked 6 on the weekend. It is Patrick Carricker from Therry Panola Seniors. He's played the 1 extra game, but he's kicked 6. And now he joins Luca DeLallo from MHSOB, who kicked 3. They're both on 60 goals. So they've gone past Mitch Brown, who's still out with that hamstring, maybe another week or 2. So Patrick Carricker and Luca DeLallo now lead Tunwatch on 60. They're 3 goals clear of Mitch Brown on 57, who didn't play, and now James Stewart on 57 after kicking 11 goals. So the top 4 goal kickers at the moment separated by 3 goals.
Do we believe?
No.
Stewart's the one because he's kicking bags against the better sides.
And has a game less than the other two guys in front of them.
43 to go. He's got 5 home and away.
Plus finals.
2, maybe 3 finals.
Yeah.
Another bag of 11.
He's back in the mix.
I might need to give Joey a call, I think.
Yeah, well, you're already negative enough. Let's not bring Joe into the equation. He'll definitely talk you back off the ledge. So 60 for Carricker and Delalo, 57 for James Stewart and Mitch Brown. 1 back to Rogan Kitts, who was held to 1 goal on the weekend from Oakley Seniors. He's on 56. On 55, Hayden Boyce, who booted 3 for Mazenod. He's on 55. Tommy Gorell kicked 4 for Old Geelong. He's on 53. Mahi Patel kicked another 6. He's on 51. He's kicked 13 goals in his last 3 weeks of senior footy at 17 years of age. So he's on 51. So we've now got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players have raised the bat for their half century. Will Hart kicked 4 for Old Kerry in the under-19. So he's on 48. Charlie McIsaac 1 for Old Zabs on 46. And Jai Pugsley kicked 3 behinds on the weekend. So he's still on 45. So out in front, our top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 goal kickers separated by just 5 goals. So the ton watch race is well and truly on. And in the VAFA Women's, it was a bye for Old Scotch, so no goals for Geordie Mipsett, which allowed Georgia Harris from Port Melbourne Chargers to kick 3 and close the gap. Jordan's on 36, Georgia's on 30. 3 goals back to Bella Geetsman, who kicked 1 for Old Ormond. She's on 27. Asher Price kicked 3 for Melbourne Uni. She's up to 26. And Mia Cowan on 25 also obviously had the bye for Old Scotch. Tips time. How'd we go on the weekend?
I'm not sure, Jace. I think you'll have to go over the scores. I couldn't quite remember.
For the second week in a row, Maddie has just narrowed the gap, only by 1 tip. You got 10, Brayden got 9, but you did get a perfect 5 out of 5 in Premier B, so well done to you.
Thank you. That may actually be the first perfect round in Prem B this season. It is a tough...
I reckon Brayden's done it a couple times.
Brayden might have done it a couple of times. You only got 2 on the weekend in Prem B over the weekend. Interestingly, Brayden now, if we break it down, Premier Women's 42-41, so you're just in front. In Prem B, it's 39-34 in favour of Brayden. And then in Prem Men's, it is 46-41 in favour of Brayden. So total 11 is the margin, 127 to 116 in favour of Brayden. We'll start with Premier Women's. And Brayden, you will have the honour. Fitzroy, 6th, taking on Westbourne, 9th, 2 p.m. Brunswick Street.
Fitzroy for me, please.
Fitzroy. Matty?
Yeah, I've tipped Fitzroy as well.
And Senchi?
Fitzroy.
Fitzroy across the board. 4th versus 5th. This is a huge game. Old Brighton taking on Kew. Old Brighton sit 5th, Kew are 4th, 2 p.m. Brighton Beach.
The home side.
Old Brighton for you, Brayden?
I've gone Kew.
Kew, okay. Senchi?
Kew for me.
Wow, he's siding with Matty. You've jumped back on board.
Took
He
1
wins
week.
2 weeks in a row and suddenly that's it. Sench has flipped. He's an easy swing seat, is Senchi. 3rd versus 8th. West Brunswick in 3rd, taking on Old Geelong 8th, 2 p.m. at McAllister.
The Magpies although from our conversation with Lauren earlier, don't be surprised if this does go to Old Geelong.
They're finding a bit of form, the Oggets.
Yeah, and I did mention that Taylor Watson for West Brunswick might not be available. I'm still going to tip West Brunswick in this one, though.
Yeah, West Brunswick.
West Brunswick across the board. And our final game, live and free on VAFA TV from 2:40 on Saturday at Camberwell. It's the great old rivals. Between them, they've won 5 Premier Women's flags. Old Scotch are in the mix again. They sit 2nd. They will host St Kevin's, who are 7th. But as we've said, still not done yet and a chance to make finals once again. They're going to have to come home with a bit of a wet sail. But they are playing some good footy right now, and they are definitely within striking distance. This is a huge game. Old Scotch versus St Kevin's. Who do you like?
Sench's team.
Cardinals.
Cardinals across the board.
Yeah, Scotch.
Scotch, and Scotch. A triple shot of Scotch. And Caulfield, who sit top of the table, have the bye. Premier B Men's, round 14 action. Collegians leading the competition, taking on Old Kerry, who sits 7th. We've spoken about how important it is for Old Kerry as they fight to stay out of the relegation zone. Brayden?
Collegians
across the board. Old Ivanhoe sit 10th. Beaumaris sits 6th. Important game, particularly for the Sharks. Old Ivanhoe trying to fight their way out of relegation.
Bowie.
Beaumaris to bounce back.
Old Ivanhoe
For Senchi.
What do you know?
They'll just win.
They'll just dig in. They've got to win.
They'll get the 4 points.
They've got to win.
Yeah.
Willie CYMS sitting 9th, but coming off a great win over Ajax, take on Old Camberwell, who are 5th, coming off that win over Old Kerry.
Old Camberwell for me.
Williamstown.
Wow, you're going to keep rolling the
Yep.
dice on CYs.
I'll stick with Matty.
Williamstown for you as well. Wow, that would be a fantastic result for CYs to get a couple of wins, put them right back up in the mix to escape relegation. The Ratch of the round, arguably, OM sit fourth, De La Salle sit second. Huge game for these two teams, as we've spoken about, just so close behind Collegians, the best of the rest in the fight for second, third and fourth spot. Who do you like?
D-Lara, I just think they're in a little bit of a tier of their own in that second sort of grade behind Collegians at the moment.
This game here at Revo Fitness Park here at Elstonwick Park. D-Lar for Brayden.
Yeah, these next two are going to be the toughest to tip in Prem B. I think D-Lar are just a bit more reliable, so I'll back them.
Yeah, D-Lar.
D-Lar across the board. And the final game of round 14 of Premier B Men's. A huge one again for Ajax on the bounce back. They've dropped to third. Old Geelong have been so good the last couple of weeks, but have left points on the table. Third versus eighth. It's getting desperate must-win time now for Old Geelong if they are going to start building some momentum and making a late move. This game down at Gary Smorgan. Who do you like?
Ajax to bounce back. I think they've earned our respect to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a bring your mouth guards to training week for Ajax, and they'll respond with a win here.
Old Geelong to lead at three-quarter time and hold on.
Wow.
Okay.
Old
we're
Geelong
doing
to win it.
now.
Yeah, that's it. Let's give us the quarter-by-quarter split. Which brings us to William Buck Premier Men's round 14 of action. We've already talked about how this might be one of the most influential weekends of the entire season. And while we kick off with a top four clash, it'll be the SEN game, the SEN match of the round. You'll see it live, also live and free on VAFA TV right here on the website. 1:45 on Saturday at the palatial, salubrious surrounds of the Toorak Park commentary box. Old Zabs versus Old Brighton. Before you tip, what are you expecting?
A great game, but I think you're going to get that no matter which game you're tuning into this weekend. This is going to be an absolute ripper. Old Zabs have been the benchmark throughout the entirety of the season. Old Brighton have been a bit down this season compared to last, but they're still a very good sign. Every time we've questioned them on this podcast, they've come back and they've produced a really good performance and a really good win. So, no, I'm expecting 4 quarters of beautiful football.
The team sheets are going to be interesting, aren't they? Particularly Old Brighton, to see what they are getting back. So Zabs second, Brighton fourth, live and free on VAFA TV and the SEN app from 1:45. Brayden, who wins?
I think Zabs, they've been a bit rusty out of the bye, but I think they're going to tune up and they'll do this pretty convincingly.
I've got the Zabs down for a win as well.
Yeah, Zabs for me as well.
Zabs across the board. Another mouth-watering matchup. Uni Blues, who sit top of the table, as we mentioned. It's been a while since they have been, against Old Scotch, who are on the rise. Scotch sit fifth, Blues are first. This game's at Melbourne Uni, and you can see it live and free on VAFA TV from 1:55 or on Community TV as well. If you've got the News Corp subscription, Blues and Scotch.
Blues.
The question for me is who goes to James Stewart? I'm going to go with the Uni Blues.
Uni Blues.
Who goes to Will Clark at the other end?
Well, that's a very good question as well.
It's going to be some fantastic matchups. What a good game that's going to be. We just continue on. Every game's a good one. St Kevin's and Uni Blacks, third versus sixth. Again, you can see this game on KTV live and exclusive from 1:55 at TH Kings. And St Kevin's sit third. Blacks sit sixth. We've sung their praises. We know St Kevin's are a bit undermanned at the moment. Can the Blacks get them?
Not at home, I don't think. I think Scott will be too strong.
I think particularly if St Kevin's are starting to get a bit of the cavalry back this week, and if they want to finish in the top 2, these are the games they've got to win, St Kevin's, so I'll back them here.
St Kevin's.
St Kevin's across the board. Old Haileybury and St Bernard. So the last couple of games now we talk about relegation battle. Old Haileybury sit 8th, St Bernard sit 10th. A great chance here for the Snow Dogs to pull back a game on Haileybury, who could find themselves in the drop zone if things go badly.
I'm going to back St Bernard's.
To win on the road for the first time for a very long time.
Yeah, I just think they're going to take a lot out of that result. And I just think the Bloods are undermanned. They're missing some key players. They did it for a half, that first half against the Blues, but I just think St Bernard's are due. And I've seen enough to believe that they can perform the Great Escape.
The return of the travelling Snow Dogs, I've tipped them as well.
Wow, okay. That'd be a big story. Senchi?
Old Haileybury.
Old Haileybury for Sench. And the final game of the weekend, equally as important. Old Trinity sit 9th after leading Brighton by 27 points on the weekend. They take on Caulfield Grammarians. And again, a great opportunity here for Trinity to either join Caulfield or be 2 games behind them. This one's at Daily Oval, so out at Trinity. Who do we like?
Oh, do I have a coin I could toss? I like the end of losing streaks. Dom Payman to kick 5 and Old Trinity win.
Tea time. Going Old Trinity.
Caulfield
for Senchi. It's going to be a fantastic weekend. All 5 games are just must-see TV. You'll see Old Zabs and Old Brighton live and free on VAFA TV. You can listen to the call with Maddie and Hugo from 1:45 on Saturday. Uni Blues and Old Scotch live from 1:55 on VAFA TV and Community TV. St Kevin's and Uni Blacks on Community TV as well. And then the Old Haileybury, St Bernard's, Old Trinity, Caulfield, Grammarians games. Keep track of scores there on the VAFA website. Gentlemen, another massive show. So much to look forward to. I can't wait for this weekend of footy. Some pieces of the puzzle are going to fall into place right across the competition, it feels like.
The biggest weekend of the year so far, this one. It's going to be a ripper.
Can't wait for it. We'll be back here next week to break it all down for the love of the game.